All right, let's get started. A preamble. I've not really engaged with urgently firings content before. I find myself saying this very, very often with a lot of people. But I am but one man. I don't know, see every YouTube video on the planet. Sorry, I'm one person. We are talking about here, and I've also done a lot of similar propaganda, like you just said, Zane. A lot of like anti-pickup truck propaganda, but don't get it twisted necessarily. I have mostly problems with modern iterations of pickup trucks, like with the giant ass truck cab and stuff like that. The reduction of like the bed space and whatnot, and the overall sort of like cultural sort of signifiers, which is mostly what urgently firing goes into. The direct comparison I always would make immediately is to the not just bikes of not just bikes version of this video, but from the sort of standpoint here, this video does go into a little bit of these sort of like economic / urbanism problems that pickup trucks have, whereas not just bikes more so focuses in heavily on that because it's what his content heavily focuses on in general. So I decided to go into with this video instead because, well, it was what was suggested to me, and I sort of liked overall a lot more of this sort of options. And I mean, like, yes, and this video directly gets into that sucking dudes. That name gets me every time. But yeah, that the video quite literally does get into that immediately. There's a reason why it's called the Pavement Princess, a term that I didn't know until now. But, since I am a dirty pre-watcher, I've watched this video. I think it's quite a good video. Why don't we get right into it? I just finished my midterm on something tangentially related. Oh, nice. Where do you study?
She's rugged, she's powerful, and coming in at a whopping 720 horsepower, she is parked in an office worker's driveway without a speck of dust on her.
This is such a great point immediately. What is the purpose of like a pickup truck? It's meant to sort of like haul a bunch of stuff, but like, dude, I look at this like, what the fuck is this? There's like, in the cul-de-sac that I live, there's a guy who like modified his pickup truck to make it look like a fucking LARPy monster truck, and I'm just like, bro, I have never seen like this get used in like, because what this is meant for is like, yeah, this is for show. It's meant to say like, look at the fact that I make a lot of money. Right, like the idea behind this is it's supposed to go like, you're supposed to like go into like rough terrain or some shit, but no one ever does that with their pickup trucks. Like, or like go into like a construction site to haul heavy material or whatever, right? But it's all for show. It's a status symbol, which is what, urgently firing eventually gets into. That's probably from Sema. It has a purpose. What's the purpose? I'm curious. I don't have the cartism like you do, sucking dudes. Sucking dudes.
She is the Pavement Princess, an expensive luxury pickup truck that's owned in...
Typically, those are sponsored trucks showing off different products. A truck like that is probably $150K, dude. Oh, God. That's a 350 Lariat, which is already $90K plus. Dude. And what, the rest of it is like the truck itself, which would be like, what, 50 to 60K? Crazy. It's a marketing tool. People don't own those. Unironically, I know, I've seen a guy who actually owns a truck like that. And oh, the truck is around 90K. Oh, okay, gotcha. I've seen a guy who unironically has one of those kinds of like giant raised up like literally that fucking shit that was there earlier. Literally has this shit. It's fucking crazy. I'm gonna go full autism. No, he does, Lamau. He owns a big truck, but it's not the same. Not the same? Huh, okay. The lifted trucks are like the equivalent to donks or lowriders for the average suburban person. Yeah, like, you know, that like from the 90s and shit, right? All the like lowriders you would see amongst like in Southern California, right? In like differing immigrant communities. I also grew up in a rural area. I've been around a lot of this shit my whole life. I'm a perfect person to consult on this. But let's keep going.
Operated by someone who does not need or use the capabilities of such a truck. And she has become an epidemic on suburban American roadways these past 30 years. But what if I told you that the rise of pickup truck owners since the 90s was not a result of our success, and certainly is not.
We love the '08 recession, don't we? We love the deregulation of markets leading to, well, people losing a ton of fucking money. Woo! Yay, the Great Recession. Let's go.
Because people are flocking to blue-collar jobs, but is instead a symptom of the overall economic and mental health crises we are facing in America.
Thanks, Obama.
And is, for many people, a coping mechanism for living in a country.
Did he make large, like, is that sort of like a byproduct of the '08 crash? He allowed, like, some more sort of, like, deregulatory sort of, maybe it's not necessarily deregulatory. No, it's not because of the recession. Interesting. He just like decided to like go along with some of the shit that the actually a consequence of regulation. Interesting. Huh.
Country without social safety nets and without the community support that we've had in the past. Well, that's the case I'm going to be making today, and it is a lot to go over, so please be sure to like this video, subscribe if you are new,
comment, and subscribe,
let's just
boys.
get right into it. And thank you to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. More on them later.
We love
so
sponsors.
Let's start with plywood. This is relevant, I promise. In the United States, a 4-foot by 8-foot plywood sheet is the literal foundation that all construction.
Fuel efficiency standards. That has to do with fuel efficiency and size of the vehicle. It's easier to make them larger and maintain miles per gallon. Ah, okay, gotcha. Plywood, construction materials. Yeah, this is what like pickup trucks are for, right? You know, hauling material from place to place. But generally speaking, yeah, like, does that happen very often with a lot of the people who currently own pickup trucks? Does it? Not really. Now, I've had a lot of the, like, similar criticisms that, I mean, like, if you're, like, living in a rural area, probably more likely, like, a lot of people haul a lot of shit. That makes sense to me. Like, I don't really have a problem with, like, those people having, like, pickup trucks. So it makes sense. They do work with the truck. My general problem that I have with like a lot of pickup truck owners are like they have the pickup truck just to say I got a pickup truck, and they don't end up doing like any hauling or anything with it. And it's just like, okay, so you just got like this monstrosity here for like no reason because you wanted to say like, oh yeah, I got a truck because my boys also have a truck and I think trucks are cool and epic, bros. But okay.
And woodworking materials are standardized around. Subfloors and houses are built with them. Wall studs are intentionally placed either 16 or 24 inches on center to accommodate them. And
I think this is also the same regulations in Canada, I think, broadly speaking. Where we also, because a lot of stuff that we like use in terms of regulation is also very similar to that of the Americans because they're one of our biggest trading partners, so we have to accommodate for that. So this is from the act you were mentioning earlier. Stated goals for the program included saving consumers money over the long term and increase fuel efficiency, preserving customer choice or consumer choice. The new rules do not dictate the size of cars, trucks, and SUVs that manufacturers can produce. Rather, it requires that all sizes of vehicles become more energy efficient. Right, because I'm assuming the reason is for it's for climate change, right? Broadly speaking, because there was like some stuff like about climate change. Corporate average fuel economy or CAFE standards. Gotcha. And maybe also trying to be able to get into European markets. But I've also talked about before why a lot of like pickup trucks and SUVs don't necessarily succeed in European markets, or like mostly like American cars. I think it's because they have gotten bigger and bigger, and and like European roads tend to be smaller. There are multiple reasons, but yes, the environment was part of it. Gotcha. But yeah, like I've talked about this before. There's a reason why American brands are not as successful in European markets. One of them is because the cars are just too big. They're too big. So no one wants to have like a car that basically takes up like the whole road. Which is why pickup trucks and SUVs, which are the things that generally speaking a lot of these American auto manufacturers tend to push for, because of a lot of subsidies and deregulation for the production of those specific cars, so they can make more of a profit. Since they're really, really big and they take up more space on European roads, which tend to be smaller, people don't really like them. And also, a lot of Europeans just have preferences for their own local brands. Americans don't do, American brands don't do well there, so the Americans bought up Euro brands. Exactly. That and, like, the same thing in Japan as well, right? Pretty much the exact same thing. Roads are smaller there. They have better public transportation. Same with the Europeans. They have better public transportation. You don't have as much need for cars. There's also, in Japan specifically, a lot of really strict parking regulations. In, like, Tokyo and shit, they are very, very strict with parking. Extremely strict. Like, if you don't have, like, your parking pass, your shit's getting fucking towed. And that's that. Unless you are, like one of their smaller, like, delivery trucks. Then that doesn't happen. I'm heavily simplifying, but there's a lot of reasons why American brands, generally speaking, have a much harder time succeeding in the sort of like broader, like, global market.
Standardized cuts of lumber, like
yeah,
the 2x4, are made to this measure so that they can be stacked on top of plywood sheets while being hauled by trains or trucks. Outside of hauling, this practice has two main benefits. The first is so that everything being used in construction is divisible by 4, which just makes the math easier and is actually the same principle that Minecraft is based off of. And then the other...
Minecraft? Yeah, the consolidation of brands in Europe has reduced it down to Japan and American imports and Volkswagen vehicles mostly. There just aren't many competitors yet. I believe the Koreans are starting to sell there more, but I don't keep up there. Gotcha. Oh, Volkswagen Auto Group. That's what VAG means. Okay. I was about to say vagina vehicles. What does that even mean?
Benefit is that standardizing cuts of lumber helps you save the amount of cuts that you make and therefore waste.
Yeah, it just makes it easier
in the process of
Don't waste
building.
wood. Shit
So
like
historically,
that, blah, blah, blah.
truck beds were standardized to this measure, so that a 4x8 plywood could sit comfortably between the wheels, and all of your other construction materials could cleanly be stacked on top of them while being hauled. And this continued all the way up through the 1990s, until trucks started to adopt the crew cab. All of the sudden, 80% of trucks now had 4 doors as opposed to 2, often at the sacrifice of the length of the bed of the truck. And since focusing more on passengers, the design of the pickup truck has become less and less oriented.
Isn't there like a chart that quite literally describes the Isn't there quite literally a truck bed like size comparison chart? Truck bed size comparison chart. Isn't that a thing? where it's just like, I think this is quite literally also the I don't want to open that thing. Like, literally, I think this is the exact same chart that also gets presented in the video, I think. I gave a presentation on lesbian marketing with Subaru as the main company. That's funny.
Around the workplace over the past 30 years, and has instead focused on comfort, aerodynamics, and size. But while truck beds have gotten smaller during that time,
the thing I mentioned earlier,
the overall size of pickup trucks absolutely has not.
That's really interesting to me, right? So, even in 2015 and 2021, still about the same size? I thought like, this chart is bullshit? Really? Yeah, because I remember, like, there used to be a lot more, like, bed space, and then that all of a sudden started changing. But now they're, like, adopting more, like, varying sizing because of regulation changes. So you can have, like, a longer bed if you want. Well, you have to pay more, obviously. No, that's not why. Oh, okay. So what is the reasoning? Short version is, what is the truck used for? You are thinking about standard work trucks. Those are not common even in work environments anymore, for a lot of reasons. Okay. Number one is extend / quad / mega / dual cabs. So, if you have to move workers, you need more seats. Right. So that's like the reasoning for why the cab eventually became like extended, having like back seats. But I guess also that's supposed to like, well, it's got a double purpose then there, right? Like, not only is it for like moving more people, but you can also now, because you have a bigger cab, you can also market it as a more sort of like family option. If you know, you have the option there to do that if you want. Not saying that's like 100%, but you know, dual purpose. Also, a lot of guys are using trailers for large shit anyway because it's easier than a truck. I want to explain this because it's extra boring, so it's better to have some bed and more room for people. Right. Family is another thing for sure. Right, gotcha. Another example. Okay. Shitting on the video in real time, I guess. Although it's probably a lot more complicated than that. I guess it's also sort of like, you know, and this is just like a kind of a thought that I'm kind of like throwing out into the ether. The economy's also changed significantly, right? So in order to keep up with like a changing economy, to be able to sell more, well, trucks to people, that's another reasoning for as to why. Like, throughout like the 80s, like a lot of like sort of like jobs requiring people to have to haul a lot of material to different places became less and less necessary. A lot more jobs started to become more corporate, more like office oriented, right? So I guess in a sort of way to try to keep up with also that sort of emergence, to be able to try to sell more product, well, you need also to try to be like, well, we need to also try to appeal to these guys. Or like, let's see, what's this example saying? Some dude owns a landscaping business. He has 3 employees. He also has a wife and 1.5 kids. He's probably using zero-turn motors that are too wide for the fucking 8-foot bed anyway. So he needs a trailer and to haul his people. Right? Okay, makes sense. The bed of the truck can be used for a water cooler, trimmers, other tool. Yeah, pruning tools, whatever needed for the landscaping. Okay. And yeah, it makes sense because, you know, if you have a landscaping business, you're going to be generally working in a lot of suburbs. Makes sense. After that, he can take his dumbass kids to the store to get groceries. This is why the first chart shown was all lies too. Interesting. Okay. My point is that the way we work has changed. Yes, and urgently firing also gets into that as well. Like, no more is there like long hauls with just like yourself in like the middle of like nowhere, basically. You're doing a lot more like it's either office work or like work in like suburbs or something. So in order to be able to accommodate for that, the design of pickup trucks had to change.
The average pickup is now 30 inches longer, 4 inches wider, 7 inches taller, and 2,000 pounds heavier than a pickup truck was in 1990.
Aren't we all a little brain
Now, with that
damaged?
size, has also come sturdier frames, larger engines, more safety systems, and luxury features. But with those features has come cost. The average pickup truck now costs more than my entire college education, and at a much worse interest rate. In 1990,
just $60K, man. That's fucking crazy. I could never imagine paying $60K for a car, dude.
The Ford F-150 had a suggested retail price of $11,200, which would be about $27,000 in today's money. However, the 2025 Ford F-150 median range models are now rolling out at $63,000. Adjusted for inflation, that is a 133% increase in cost.
That's a lot of fucking money, man. That's crazy. Average F-150 buyer is 55, by the way. Also, average household income is around 80K of the average buyer. Average is white, but 20% are Latino. I do believe, I don't think he gets, I don't think that urgently firing gets into that exactly. This is like sort of like a lot of preamble to the, I guess, sort of more overall point that's going to be going on. It's a car that's been turned into a truck. They're ugly as fuck and Australian as fuck. Ah, okay.
Despite real wages having only gone up 15% in that same time. So someone in 1990 could have realistically bought nearly 2.5 Ford F-150s for the same percentage of their income that somebody would be spending today. So why are people doing it? Why are more people than ever before buying pickup trucks, despite them being more expensive, having less utility, and being less easy to navigate as a result of their increase in size?
Oh, dude, like, yeah, going through like underground parkings with like giant like with like all those like giant pickup trucks sometimes in there can just be such a hassle. I can only imagine how much of a nightmare it might be to park one of those things in like underground parking. Like, cause in my apartment building, it used to be someone with a pickup truck. It wasn't as big as like that one that was like popped up previously. It fit in pretty nicely, to be honest, into like the parking spot. Like the car that I have, it's just like a little sedan. It's a little sedan for my like roommates and everything, because they were the only ones that had the car. So it's like I always would have to be like, you know, careful, I guess, sometimes trying to like park the car, because sometimes like it would like the neighbor would just like park like complete shit. Sometimes they still park like shit even though there's like an SUV that goes in there now. Whatever. You have to be like a little careful sometimes about how you park the thing, because there's just like giant truck and you might like scratch it or some shit.
Well, that's what I want to talk about today, because this goes a lot deeper than you might think. But first, I want to quickly address my own personal connection to pickup trucks, before y'all accuse me of being some lifelong soft hands liberal yuppie. I have been around in driven trucks my whole life. I learned how to drive on an old stick-shift manual transmission Toyota Tacoma, and most of my relatives still drive pickups to this day. My job in high school required driving truckloads of copper wiring up up to Chico,
Trucking,
California
that's
for
right, brother.
scrap. In college, I installed flooring in new housing constructions. And in grad school, I spent my summers driving truckloads full of beer around the Lake Tahoe area for merchandising. And while I don't own a pickup truck anymore, I do still drive an SUV because I'm over 6 feet tall and I live in the mountains, so I kind of have to in order to survive. I do not care at all if somebody owns a pickup truck, even if they live in a city and are not a blue-collar worker. But I am a socio-economist, and so the rise of oversized, overpriced, and underutilized pickup trucks is a fascinating symptom of the—
Just seeing sucking dudes, like, in the chat, like, that's bottom shit, bottom. Californian. Oh, 6 feet tall? Oh, we're Brack from Jover to Barack, from Jover to Barack. I think he also mentions that he's from Nevada, I think. Originally from Nevada, moved to Northern California, kind of a deal. His lazy eye is doing too much. Horny posting in chat, shaking my head.
broader economic issues that we're facing in this country, and is something that I really want to talk about. So, generally speaking, this video is not about truck owners who actually need them. If you work construction, or if you haul stuff as part of your day-to-day life, this video is not about you. Instead, this is going to be about the people who do not need to own a pickup truck, but who buy one anyway. You've all seen those guys. And gals. So, at its core, the people who do not need trucks buy trucks because they are a symbol of stability and success. Pickup trucks are starting to cost more money than going to a state.
Yeah, and now we're sort of getting into the more sort of, we understand why these people want to have like pickup trucks and shit like that. Yes, how trucks essentially now act as like a status symbol rather than like, more as like a status symbol now rather than like this sort of like return with a V of like nationalist Americana, which Urgently Firing also does get into, so I'm stealing a bit of their fire here. But like, like we all know like the stupid like propaganda about like only good old American country boys have day truck and do day hauling and do day hard work and stuff like that. We all know the meme, right? When like generally speaking, who are the people that own the pickup trucks? It's a lot of suburbanite dads who want to like LARP and pretend. Like, I'm gonna be honest, a lot of people who own pickup trucks are like, well, LARPers.
University. They are an incredibly reckless waste of money for a lot of Americans, and are oftentimes the single biggest financial burden that an American family has when they own one. But we'll talk about that more in a minute. Even if the pickup truck doesn't make financial sense, the social value that it can—
But I'm trying to think, because okay, I'm gonna do like just like a direct anecdote comparisons, right? So my family, we have an SUV. I've had my problems with like SUVs in the past, but I understand the reasoning why we have SUVs. It's for our grandparents, right? Because it's easier for them to get in, so we can take them to whatever like doctor's offices they have to go to, generally speaking. And we also have a we have a Mercedes, because upper middle class, blah blah blah, shit like that, yada yada yada. I've not been afraid to share my sort of class disposition before, and I'm trying to remember how much we pay. How much do we pay monthly? Because I know that with pickup trucks, the monthly payments are steep, very high. I want to say that's what model Mercedes? It used to be the C350, but it's not that anymore. I don't remember. It used to be the C350, but I don't think that exists anymore. But I don't remember. But It's a C class. Listen, I blame my dad. Okay, he's the one. You are poor. I said upper middle class. Listen, I went to a private school, but I was like, out of all the like motherfuckers there, I was in the sort of, I was more poor in comparison. But yeah, to be honest, I don't remember what Mercedes we had. That was the one that we used to have, but we have a different one now. I have no. I'd have to look it up. I don't remember. Exactly. That's the tax return down payment Mercedes. Listen, my parents, they wanted to try to flex a little bit, okay? I don't blame them. They tried. They're trying their best. Listen, there's only so much we can do after immigrating from Romania after the war, the fall of the Warsaw Pact, okay? We're trying our best. What was I saying? I'm trying to like think. What is the leasing amount for the current Mercedes and stuff, like the cars that we have in the family? I want to say it's like 200 something for the Nissan Murano, because we recently just got a newer one because the old one we had just like died after like having it for 12 years. So the one that we have is like it's one of the newer ones. Yeah, because we had an old Murano, and so we have we got a deal with the dealership because we've been a loyal customer for like 12 years because we used to have an old one. So then we got the new one on like a fucking discount and shit like that. That's why they took it, because it's like, whatever. Our other one is dying and they're offering us a new car, so fuck it, whatever. And I think like the Mercedes is like I think it's like 450 a month or something. So just with like those two combined together is about the same for like what is a pickup truck. That's fucking crazy. The Nissan is done. Man, listen. I had no decision into what cars my parents bought. They just bought the cars and they just let me use them. So hey, free car for me to use if I ask them for. So hey, But yeah, in terms of like what, like sort of the economics of like, I think even in the example before, what, monthly payment of 1,000. A record number of people are paying 1,000 or more for their monthly auto loan payments. Dude, yeah, for 2 cars, I don't think we pay 1,000. I don't even think we pay like more than $800. That is fucking crazy. Nissan had dealership owners revolting a couple years ago in a meeting with the execs. They're probably pulling out of the U.S. market. It's so bad. Damn. Well, it's time. Like I don't know about the Canadian market for certain, but I guess my parents will eventually have to find a new SUV. Or honestly, like I said before, the only reason why we have the Nissan Murano is because we got like a new one back in like 06. Or not back in like 06. More like back in like 2010. It died after like 12 years. Like we had the thing for like 12 plus years. It eventually just died, because it just died. And we've just been known in like the that particular like dealership for like over a decade, so they gave us a good deal on the new one. So they're just like, yeah, whatever, fuck it. ATC of vehicles has been rising sharply since COVID. We are also getting more people behind on these payments. Yeah, exactly. Like, I guess my sort of overall point, because I wasn't sure 100% like how much we pay in like auto loan payments. I want to say it's no more than 800, just for one car alone. Like, I think for like most pickup trucks, it's like 700 plus or some shit. It's insane. The monthly payments for my Mini was like $235. Crazy.
that an American family has when they own one. But we'll talk about that more in a minute. Even if the pickup truck doesn't make financial sense, the social value that it carries
Couldn't imagine paying
does.
4 times that.
Pickup trucks signal that you have a blue-collar identity, or at the very least, signals having blue-collar values to the people around you.
Yeah, exactly.
In theory. But even that's...
It's all, like, LARP shit, right? Like, we all know who typically owns, like I just, who typically own, like, a lot of these like, pickup trucks, right? Like, it's a lot of, like, suburbanite dads, right? Those guys don't have blue-collar, like, maybe some of them do, right? Or, like, blue-collar work. But most, like, suburbanite, like, dads work an office job. Let's be honest here, they do. They work in, like, some corporate sector. Or maybe they work in, like public sector work or whatever. Right? I have a 2016 RAV4. I got in 2023 payment with taxes. And all that is $360. Damn. Yeah, like, in comparison to, like, getting well, how much would, like, a used truck would be, right? Would, like, a used truck... It wouldn't be, like, $700 or some shit. No fucking way, but... They probably use the truck to bring the kids' bikes places or go fishing one weekend per year. Haha. Still stupid expensive. Yeah, I figured they'd still be really, really expensive. So instead of like what, like $700, $800, it'd be like what, $400 or $500 or some shit. I'm just like throwing random numbers out there, right? Like even then, like I could be like over or underestimating. Like, I'm not, like, super in tune with, like, car, like, economy. Never really owned a car before. But whatever. Bike racks exist for a reason. That's true.
Questionable, as skilled tradesmen make
Automod
less
is
than
homophobic, I agree.
25% of the workforce in America. And beyond that, this image that we have of a rugged, high-earning, blue-collar man with hometown conservative values is an incredibly small percentage of the American workforce.
This image is, like, the reason why I wanted to talk about this. This shit triggers the fuck out of me so hard. Because, like, this does not exist. What, like, blue-collar, like, manufacturing, like, hard-working man, like, exists? I have never seen this person ever before. Because, again, a lot of, like, manufacturing, like, more what I classify as rudimentary sort of position, they do not pay $100K a year. That's not a thing unless they're, like, oil rig workers. Then maybe they get paid that much. I don't even think they would get paid that much. I'm definitely speaking out of my ass when I say that. They definitely get paid more, unless they're like, the foremans probably do get paid this much. But, like, if we're talking about, like, the, like, oil rig workers, like, more dangerous work, they definitely get paid a lot more. A lot of skilled trades are making around that. Oh, like, what would that be, like plumbing and electricians? Electricians? I know they make quite a bit of money. Is it like $100K a year money? I'm a blue collar worker. I just don't own a truck and I'm poor, Lamau. Exactly. But like, yeah, it's supposed to. Yeah. So electrician work and like plumbers, they make a lot of money. They make a good amount of money. Those are the sort of like main skilled trades workers. But like, what is meant by like blue collar work in like the mind of like the American like sort of zeitgeist, I suppose. It's not like like electrician work or plumbing work. Although like those guys are also sort of like included in the sort of blue collar sort of work. They mean like manufacturing workers. Or like the sort of like Rust Belt, sort of like Return with a V, like 50s manufacturing boom people. Yes, carpenters do also make a lot as well. That's what they're generally sort of like thinking of. Or like cowboys and like ranchers or some shit. Right? That's like the idea of like what this is supposed to encapsulate, broadly speaking, right? white picket fence with white picket fence, wife, a dog, and 1.5 to 2 kids, right? That's like the 50s ideal that this is supposed to represent. But this just doesn't exist anymore because, again, the economy has significantly changed. As oh god, I forgot their name for a second. Urgently Firing even mentioned, a lot of work nowadays is it's more corporate, office work, right? There have been obviously what all of the sort of baseline manufacturing work has been shipped off to, say, a lot of places in the global south, because they want to billionaires, CEOs, owners of companies, they want to exploit, obviously, the labor pool from over there. They don't have to pay as much money because they don't have to follow as many rules and regulations in those countries, and also they don't have to pay as much because of how strong the American dollar is in comparison to that foreign country. We all know the vast swaths of reasons of why manufacturing, broadly speaking, has left the United States of America. And yeah, you're saying, sucking dudes. Yeah, white picket fence, white people, dogs, fire hoses, Jim Crow. Yeah, the American dream. True. Yeah, that's true. America, we love America. So this ideal that has still being pandered to and talked about as a cultural signifier, it's still done to this day. Even though this is not this just doesn't exist anymore. 1 and 2% of the American workforce is this exact individual, right? This exact person, and it's just because even the Democrats will do the same thing. It's just brother, stop singing to the tune of Republicans. This shit is dead. Appeal to something else. Talk about other things. Baseline manufacturing in America, broadly speaking, is dead. I don't have a problem of pushing out for more trades, carpenters, plumbers, electricians. It makes sense. There needs to be people who can help sort of maintain the sort of artifice of I don't know, not artifice. That's not the correct word. This sort of living conditions, of generally what people sort of are living in. The suburban households. Precipice? I don't think precipice is the correct word. The problem is this country is so gay for blue-collar jobs. Me too, but damn, the right wing is relentless with glazing these people. Urgently Firing also gets into that as well, into later parts of this video. So I don't want to steal their thunder, pretty much. But yeah, this idea, this sort of idea, it's dead. It's not coming back unless something ridiculous happens. And it's certainly not happening with the tariffs or whatever. Just doing forehead tariffs is just ridiculous. The right wing glazes blue collars so hard, but they are usually the ones that fuck us the most. Here's the thing with why they glaze the blue collar workers as hard as they do. It's because of stuff I've constantly talked about before. It's way easier to sort of manipulate blue collar workers. Now, what do I mean by this essentially? What I mean by it's easier to sort of manipulate them is that it's a lot easier to push propaganda and narratives on a lot of blue collar workers, because why is that? A lot of blue collar workers tend to not as often go to university and develop those exact same sort of it's a lot easier to manipulate those who are very desperate and yeah, you're saying, sucka dudes, people who are poor, desperate, and undereducated. It's way easier to manipulate those people based on their fears and, this sort of idealized sort of past that used to exist that can somehow be brought back. But we all know that it can't be brought back. It's not that, it's not as simple as doing 3 forehead, just do tariff and it brings them back. That's not how that works. That's stupid. There has to be some actual investment in order to be able to bring back manufacturing, to incentivize companies to want to pay, Americans to do those work. And I've also talked about this before, but guess what? A lot of Americans don't want to do this sort of like rudimentary sort of like manufacturing work, because that's what's being appealed to here. Like, a good old manufacturing, working hard man, who's really good with his hands and stuff. No one really wants to do that work anymore. Period. End of story. Like, in the 50s, when that was like way more prominent, and they got paid way better and had unions in order to be able to, push for their rights and maintain those rights. Not so much anymore. Like, that just doesn't exist because unions have been destroyed. But that's like a whole other story. Blah blah blah. A lot of the work that these people idolize and constantly think about all the time, it doesn't exist anymore, and people don't want to do it. But for whatever reason, and like, just like in the Gary Cohen sort of idea, like, he tried to explain to Trump, like, people don't want to do this work standing in front of a blast furnace for 8 hours a day. They prefer like an air-conditioned office. Yeah, like you said, Zane, the work is hard and fucking sucks, and the people in the jobs suck harder. Well, depends on what you mean by sucks harder. People don't want to do that work anymore. They much prefer their cozy office, sitting in an air-conditioned room. Like, I do wonder, like, a lot of these people who harken back these times, like, it's all pundits who've never done any of that work and just have podcasts, and they sit comfortably, like, getting paid by, like, billionaires to espouse, like, complete nonsense. But whatever. Like, I want them to go, like, to, like, say, China or, like, Vietnam, who do these, like, rudimentary work, and see, like, we all know of, like, the video, right, of, like, the one Chinese manufacturing worker who's standing in front of the molten metal, getting doused with water to stay cool. Do you want to do that work? I ask you people this question. It's rhetorical, of course, but, like, would you want to do something like that? I think the answer is probably not. You much prefer your cozy office work job, where, like, I don't know, you can, like, sneak looks at your, like, sexy office worker, like, female co-workers or some shit. Whatever. What's up, Boy Meets Mini?
You are way more likely to find one of these guys in a country music video than you ever are on an actual work site. And in many ways, this guy is just the American version of nationalist propaganda that we saw come out of places like Germany and Russia in the 20th century.
Yeah, it's the exact same fucking bullshit every single time. Look at the honorable Volk of the Reich. Hard working in order to provide for the state. Same line of propaganda in the USSR as well. Look at this honorable man providing for his family and for the glorious state of Russia. Like, same bullshit. It's all like, yeah, like you said, Boy Meets Mini. It's all like patriarchal, like honor shit and stuff like that.
Blue-collar values actually exist in the US, they are probably a lot more left-leaning and a lot less financially well-off than we tend to give them credit for. But I digress.
And also, like, a lot of immigrants, right? Like, a lot of immigrants do this sort of, like, idealized hard work that these people do, right? Like, a lot of agricultural work is done by, like, illegal immigrants, right? Like, this like, that's not hyperbole. It's not ridiculous to say. Like, landscaping work, agricultural work, construction work. Like, a lot of Americans, like, naturalized citizens, they don't want to do that shit. So, guess what? They bring in a bunch of migrants in order to do that stuff. Like, like, the meme about, like, the kafala system, right? We all know this.
truth, the pickup truck is now so expensive that they are a luxury item more than anything else. They signal to people that you
That's
have
true,
the
Zane.
$60,000 to spend on your vehicle, and that you have the freedom to engage in masculine hobbies if you wanted to. Things like camping, hunting, gardening, or renovation projects that people with less money oftentimes just don't have the freedom to commit time to.
That's true.
See, the United States is a society that values.
I mean, it's not like they can't do it. I mean, they could if they want to, but like, good luck with that, right? Those are expensive fucking hobbies. But yeah, like is being constantly said here. Who are the general people who sort of idealize and LARP at those like ideals? It's the suburbanite dads. We all know the sort of archetype. We know. Dude who's like barely keeping together his like marriage, works in like an office job, but has like again the pickup truck to sort of be like, yeah, I have a stable career and income and a wife and kids. Yeah, look at me. Look at my status symbol kind of a deal. Even in the suburbs, a lot of people don't get time off work to do these things now. Dude, it's actually crazy because like the idea of like productivity for productivity's sake is just like such an idealized thing in like America. It's so weird. Like, which is also a concept which Urgently Firing also gets into as well in the video. It's just like every other country would like look at that and think that's like weird, right? It's just like, bro, you're working so much and so hard and you barely have any time for yourself. Like, what the fuck, right? But then like all those people, because like everything is like so atomized and like individualized in America, they don't like recognize that point. And this is like broader death of subjectivity sort of stuff. Like they just like make fun of like the lazy Italians who need to do their like whatever thing, or like all those Spaniards with their like midday naps or whatever the fuck, but they have like way healthier outcomes and about as much like productivity as to like any other like same average American, and they're like way happier. And it's just like, well, that's a little weird. Why is that?
Values freedom and individualism above all else. And since we don't really have safety nets in this country, money therefore equals freedom for the individual living in the States. And so spending lots of money signals to other people that you have lots of freedom. And since American marketing and propaganda has equated hard work as the pathway to freedom, then people
doing the quick flash of the Auschwitz-Birkenau fucking concentration camp entrance. Yeah, hard work is freedom. I do find it really funny that like not a lot of people have like immediately like recognized like, yeah, isn't it really sus that the idea of like, work, if you like work really hard, like you become like, you have more freedom. It's like, isn't that kind of sus?
Use having money and free time as a proxy to say that you are a hard worker. And there is nothing that carries more social clout in America than being...
Yeah, most people compartmentalize what the Nazis did is exclusive to that time regime. Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a reason why, like, people seem to forget this. Like, the Nazis learned quite a bit from the Americans in terms of how they did their sort of like laws. They adopted quite a lot of like Jim Crow era sort of like laws within Europe, within Germany, not within Europe.
Being a hard worker. That's why we brag about being so tired and busy all the time. Whereas other cultures might look at someone being tired and busy and think, wow, they're too stupid and disorganized to have their life together to the point that they can relax. We here in America wear our busyness as a badge of honor. But just
this is like the sort of like death of subjectivity point that I was like getting into just like earlier, right? Like, because of how individualized America has become as like a culture, as a state, period, no one is able to sort of like recognize or think like, well, why is that the case? That's a little weird. And like no one wants to like think about like why it's better in terms of like outcomes of happiness in a lot of like other countries, um, whether it be like the Nordic countries or other like European countries, even though they keep up with like a similar amount of productivity in comparison to US. Is Canada similar in that, or do you adopt a more European SOCDEM POV? In terms of like people celebrating that they're busybodies, not really. That's not really a thing that happens all that much. I mean, I haven't really been on like a corporate office or whatever, people saying like, "Oh yeah, you're like a really hard worker and that needs to be celebrated." I've never really seen that behavior all that much. Honestly, people just more complain about their work, but that's like a thing with like every sort of like a country and culture where everyone just like complains about work or whatever. I haven't really seen that behavior all that much in Canada. Not really.
Because people who drive pickup trucks are spending lots of money doesn't mean that they are actually successful. As an economist, the financing trends around vehicles in America is super concerning to me. The average monthly payment on a new pickup truck is now sitting at $715, and that's before gas and maintenance, which is usually more expensive for these trucks. Money, and the average monthly payment on a used car isn't that much better at $520. When you consider that the median full-time worker in America is bringing home about $4,000-ish a month, or $1,200 a month if they're working 30 hours or less, that means there are a lot of people spending a significant portion of their take-home pay on their vehicle alone.
What, with like insurance? With like insurance, gas and maintenance, it's probably up to a third of their income just on their car. And then what, the rest has to go to rent? And people are like surprised, like, oh, why is everyone in America so poor? Well, that's why. A lot of, and also like has been said earlier, a lot of wages have not kept up with inflation. And the purpose of that is fairly obvious and simple, right? It's about maintenance of a permanent underclass. That's why. So the oligarchs, billionaires, and CEOs on the top can easily maintain the hierarchy of control. That's what it's all about with billionaires and the CEOs. All about maintenance of control. You finance your brand new Mini for about $350 a month, paid off in 5 years. Damn, that's half of what you would get for like a pickup truck.
So you might assume then that somebody driving an above average costing vehicle makes an above average salary in America and can therefore afford to do so, right? No. Pickup trucks are 4 times as likely to be leased than other passenger cars. And nearly 1 in 5 vehicles being financed every year are pickup trucks. And while we just don't have data on how much these drivers actually earn, we can discern from average debt reports and average interest rates on cars, which are in part determined by your credit score, that a huge subset of Americans who are driving pickup trucks cannot actually afford to be driving these trucks.
Right.
And we can also safely guess.
Yeah, the higher the interest rates you have on a card, it's assumed that you're having a harder time being able to pay that shit off, right? That's like the meme. Obviously, if you have lower credit scores, it's assumed that you're not very good at being able to pay off your shit, so you get higher interest rates as a result because yada yada yada. It's like, dude, people complain about like China's social credit score system, and I do think that system is bad, obviously. Like, you shouldn't be judged, based off of that. But, like, people don't have, like, a problem with, like, credit scores when that system is, like, not the exact same, but rather fucking similar. Like, you can be blocked off from, like, particular services because of how bad your credit score is. It's all just fucking dog shit. I also find it hilarious that, like, you can lower your credit score just by, like, checking your credit score. I think that's pretty fucked up as well. It's like, well, what's so bad about knowing? Like, well, if you want to know that credit score constantly, it means, like, you're in a panic, and that means you're bad at paying. It's like, does that really mean you're bad at, like, paying your credit card off if you keep constantly checking your credit score? That seems like a really weird mentality. Credit scores are fine as long as it's not social clueless. True.
Based off the distribution of American workers, that people driving pickup trucks aren't working blue-collar jobs and therefore don't actually need to own a truck. They own one because there are outside pressures convincing them to own one. This is a classic case of keeping up with the Joneses, where Americans inflate their lifestyle and cost of living, not because they want to for personal reasons, but because they feel like they have to in order to keep up with their friends, family, and neighbors. And
exactly, yeah, it's all like sociological sort of stuff overall, right? Consequences of suburbia and shit like that, you know, trying to be like, oh yeah, well, you know, how about like, look at my cool pickup truck, and it's all about like flexing to other, like, it's the same shit with like all the alpha male fucking shit all the fucking time. They don't do the shit that they do because they want to impress women. They do it to impress other men, right? Why do they have the super expensive ass cars? Because other men have those super expensive ass cars. Why are they so obsessed with making so much money? Because a lot of other men want to have a lot of that money. I know, like, also this is like a thing with like Gen Z, and this is a broader trend I've been noticing and hearing about. A lot of Gen Z is obsessed with wanting to make a lot of money. Now, the byproduct of this can be from, you know, a lot of the alpha male dumb fuck podcasts, but also because of just how bad the economy is in general. Just the economy being dog shit. So a lot of people want to find ways in order to be able to get out of the current economic malaise that we find ourselves in order to be like, well, look at me. I'm like on top of the social ladder. I'm heckin' epic and cool and shit like that. You know, socioeconomic stuff and, you know, a bunch of other shit. All combining in tandem to essentially make, like, well, a lot of just really sad and depressed people. It's genuinely sad, I'll be honest.
Those psychological traps that pressure people into more and more consumerism are the most prevalent in America's suburbs. In 2021, Brett McKay from The Art of Manliness published an article about what he called soft suburban dad syndrome. He noticed that as a lot of men became more comfortable, they became disproportionately overweight, antisocial, and depressed when compared to their wives. And especially around the age 30 mark, you see a ton of relationships where the man has theoretically never been doing better by all perceivable metrics. They've got a young, hot wife.
I guess I'm cooked, boys. I'm cooked. I don't have a young, hot wife.
In a stable career,
they've
got a car, cooked. And they're living in a neighborhood full of young families. And while
I guess I am technically living in a neighborhood with young families, I guess. I don't even know, honestly. I live in an area that has a lot of immigrants. Lots of immigrants. But boys, it's over for me. It's over. Stable career? Nah. Car? Nah. Hot wife? Nah. I think it's over for me. It's over. I'm taking the black pill, guys. I'm an incel now. Single tier.
While their wife is glowing and arguably at her prime, the husband is miserable, out of shape, and completely devoid of the spark and ambition that he had through his 20s that got them to where they are today. And while I do agree that suburbia turns a lot of guys into a soulless husk of a human, I have personally noticed another strain of man who haunts the streets of the suburbs.
I'm trying to think. I don't, like, I'm not 100, I don't, I agree over, okay. I'm not disagreeing with this point. I do agree with this point, right? I think this is just like a sort of byproduct of what suburbia was. Like, this is the purpose of suburbia. I'm mostly saying this is like an additive. Because I see suburbia as fundamentally inhuman. It is, I think, suburbs are a crime against humanity, because what is the purpose of suburbs? Well, back in the days of tenement housing, often, not that I'm saying tenement housing was good. Obviously not. It was pretty bad. Very often times in tenement housing, you were with your fellow man, your fellow workers, being social, talking about your work, and generally speaking, how much it sucked, right? And it made you want to do something about that. Well, in comes the 50s and the sort of suburbanization of, and a lot of the like housing projects that popped up because of the baby boom and stuff like that. As a whole byproduct of that. As a sort of result from trying to move away from tenement housing, because guess what? They kind of sucked. And like unions trying to fight more for like better housing policy. Suburbs sort of came up as like a sort of byproduct of that. And the sort of consequences of that with tenement housing, and like I also include public transportation in this, very often workers were walking alongside of their bosses. So you always had a clear idea of, in the mind of like your average worker back in the days of tenement housing, who the opponent truly was for your rights, for your position in life. You always knew in the back of your mind, you're just like, I don't like you because you're the fat cat on top who benefits off of my labor. There's a reason why during the times of tenement housing, like, more communist movements were very, very, very successful. Because people knew who the enemy were. But suburbanization separated that. And as more and more generations were born in, well, suburban housing and whatnot, that sort of idea was lost. It was forgotten. People don't broadly know sort of like who the enemy truly is. I say who the enemy is, like, it's like rhetorical, right? Because, with like redlining, gentrification, all this like different shit, all these like different sort of like zoning policies are a big reason for this. Like you have like the emergence of like gated communities, suburbs, and like the inner city housing or like projects and shit like that, right? The point of it was to separate people by class strata, so then no one is basically interacting with one another, and it becomes a lot more difficult for people to organize with one another. That was a big point of it. Make it more difficult for the proletariat to organize. So then, like I said before earlier, with the goal of what these billionaires, CEOs, what have you, what their actual goals are, besides making all the money in the universe, maintenance of hierarchy. First order of all billionaires and conservatives. Maintenance of hierarchy. The billionaires and the rich are the ones who are on top, and you're gonna like it. Yeah, dink donk, dink donk.
And that's the guy who becomes super fucking insufferable. Giant truck, loud music, politically aggressive, weirdly into productivity podcasts despite being a functioning alcoholic, and overall just generally unpleasant to be around. It's funny, I lived in Section 8 housing until I was 27 years old. If you don't know, that's project housing for poor people.
Dude, I like in Ottawa, I live next to projects. I walked around there in like the middle of the night. Nothing. Like you get like a dog barking every now and again, and that's it. It was actually like safer there in comparison to like some fucking suburbs. Like I've said this story before, but like I've had arson attacks happen in like the old like neighborhood I lived in. Huge drug busts have also happened in the old neighborhood that I used to live in. In the projects that I lived by, that never fucking happened. Never.
And it was a shockingly...
There was even a communal garden by like the old project area that I don't know if it's accurate for me to say projects, but like, dude, it's suburbs are just dog shit, dude. And it's like what I was mentioning earlier. The purpose of the suburbs is to make people more socially isolated and just not think of their fellow man as their fellow man. That is the point. And yeah, like you said, Boy Meets Mini. Oh god, I won't even go into the amount of stories about like fucking people with guns in like suburbs at like high school parties and shit. That happened a lot. But yeah, like suburbs are dog shit because again, of like the stuff that I mentioned earlier. It's meant to dehumanize you and basically isolate you from your fellow man. That's the point of the suburb.
peaceful existence.
To make it harder
was
to
always
organize.
Quiet, I never really heard from my neighbors, and there weren't political signs anywhere. But then my...
Same in, like, the apartments that I've lived in. Political signs anywhere? No, not really. Hardly. Like, or, like, stuff like hanging out from, like, the balconies and shit. That hardly fucking happened. Ever. Generally speaking, I had, like, pretty good relationships with my neighbors as well. Back in Ottawa, here, like, I've spoken with a couple of my neighbors before. I have nice, like, you know, we've had nice conversations before in, like, the elevator and shit where we just, like, talk or whatever. Generally nice people. Meanwhile, the burbs, it's either Trump signs or PTA moms with all the lib signs. Don't get me fucking started, man. Like, again... Because, like, and this is, like, my whole, like, rant with suburbia. It's meant to fundamentally dehumanize you and the people around you. That is its purpose. To make it harder for people to organize. And I've talked about, like, my mother as, like, an anecdote with this. I think it's, like, it's what happened. Byproduct, quite literally, directly, of suburbia. Where she's become, like, a lot more stressed out. A lot more fucking, like, racist, to be honest. Because of, well... living in a suburb, in a cul-de-sac for like 20 plus years at this point. And she's become worse because of it. And it's a bit... I've brought this up directly to her face before. I'm like, you're getting worse. Like, I think you're getting really bad in terms of these things. And she's like, no, I don't think so. I've always thought like this. Like, no, you haven't. You're full of shit and you know it. And it's just sad. Like, I'm telling you, like, suburbs, crimes against humanity. The person who created the system should be tried at The Hague.
Income tripled, and so I moved into one of those emerging middle-class neighborhoods for young families. And my life has become anything but peaceful. People are constantly revving trucks, throwing parties in their yard, kids are always doorbell ditching houses, and the cops are constantly going up and down my street, responding to some type of noise complaint or domestic dispute. And while I would definitely prefer to be where I am now as opposed to where I was living in poverty, it is fascinating to see what money and stability does to a lot of men in the suburbs. They've got money, they've got the girl, they're in a house, even if they're only renting it, and yet they are acting out in emotional and insecure ways that you would expect from a teenager, not an alleged man in his 30s. And I think this really embodies the broader crisis that we've been having with men in America these past couple decades. It is not going to blow anybody's mind when I claim that we have a massive issue with male behavior in this country. The male and female demographic at colleges has completely flipped.
You want to know how cooked the suburbs are? Irvine, California's International Airport had to shorten their runway because of noise complaints from rich Newport Beach Karens, and it became one of the toughest runways to land and take off from. Dude, fucking, I hate those people, man. Like, the stupid dumbasses who go to, like, your... This is why I say it's really important to go to your, like, city council meetings and stuff like that, because you have to push back against shit like that. You have to. Like, you're just making it more difficult at the fucking airport. And yeah, I figured this chart, like, yeah, this chart does come out. There's a reason why a lot of, like, anti-intellectualism and less men are starting to go to college nowadays. Or university, rather. Because they just see, like, yeah, what's the point? Economy's fucked, everything's fucked. I'm not gonna, like, be successful anyway. Like, fuck it. Nothing means anything anymore. And it's a broader, like, sociological problem. I know, like, urgently firing also gets into this as well. Talking about, like, you know, and I've discussed about this idea before. The idea that, like, men are no longer able to get what they believe is owed to them, quote unquote, because of, like, you know, like, patriarchal standards, because more and more women are entering the workplace. It's harder and harder. It's more competitive than ever to sort of be in the, like, labor market. So a lot of men feel like they're being left behind, and as a result, they're becoming, well, in terms of behavior, way, way worse.
flipped, and young adult men are overwhelmingly dropping out of the workforce. And there's a pretty big disconnect between what straight women want out of men in the dating world and how these men are actually behaving. Now, you all know this at the surface level, but the problem with this conversation is that it's not coming from people who are actually living the masculinity crisis. A lot of complaints about masculinity in America are coming from women, which is a valuable perspective, but it is skewed by a lot of socialization, cultural baggage, and trauma that just isn't relevant to a lot of men. And then you've got—
That is true. I don't think that's a ridiculous assertion. It's a valuable perspective to have, but like, dude, like, women do get treated like shit, you know, in comparison. Like, it wasn't that long ago that, like, women were just able to take out credit cards in their own name. That was happened in the 70s, right? Like, a lot of, like, how, like, ways that women get treated, broadly speaking, in America is pretty dog shit. And, like, the compensations that, like, and urgently firing also gets into this, and I have the exact same fucking criticism of fucking liberals here. This sort of idea of, like, the girl bossing culture is also really not helping. Like, the liberal second wave feminism, right? Not really the solution to the problem. It's actually exacerbating the sort of, like, male loneliness sort of, like, epidemic that's happening nowadays, right? That's why I always talk about it's very important to always focus on intersectionality. Very, very important.
Got men on political extremes who aren't really relatable either. You've got the urban leftist types who are coming from so much privilege or are so mentally unwell that it's kind of gross to listen to them talk. And then you've got the guys on the far right who sound like they're presenting at a fascist rally anytime that they open their mouths. And so I am going to try and meet somewhere in the middle when I talk about this. I grew up in a mixed working class family that a lot of people—
I do kind of agree. Yeah, a lot of male feminist types are fucking annoying. I find it really funny that I get accused of being, like, a male feminist type, which I find very strange, because it's just, like, I also talk about men's issues very, very often. Like, a lot of the stuff that I'm experiencing right now are, like, pretty sort of, like, men's issues coded, but I'm not, like, I have a good head on my fucking shoulders. I have all the, like, ragging and criticisms I have of, like, my fucking parents. They made sure that I had a good fucking head on my shoulders, that I'm not a complete, like, psychopath. Because otherwise, I do think I probably would have fallen into these exact same sort of, like, rabbit holes and shit. Like, you know, like, inceldom and shit like that. Like, whatever.
People would describe as having white trash beliefs, lifestyles, and behaviors. I worked blue-collar jobs for years before finally breaking into academia, and now I work from the ivory tower of a university as a job market economist. I understand both sides because I have lived both sides without getting particularly radicalized in one direction or the other. And I know that liberals are going to hear that and think that I'm conservative, and that conservatives are going to hear that and think that I'm liberal. And
yeah, I fucking hate that shit, dude. Like, I totally agree with, like, urgently firing here, because I mean, it's just a byproduct of, like, the social balkanization that's happening in politics, right? Like, yeah, I don't want to be, like, a both sides fucking Andy here, but I think it's, like, important to sort of, like, listen to, like, the perspectives. I agree with this. Very, very important. And, like, the fact that, like, people's brains tend to, like, shut down, it's even, like, a behavior that I notice in a lot of, like, people that I know. Because it's just not that simple, right? Socioeconomic conditions are hard on everyone. Everyone's sort of story is different. It's very important to just, like, meet people where they're at. I say this all the time. Just meet them where they're at. Right? Unless, unless if someone like chat just, like, comes in and decides to be, like, stupidly annoying and aggressive, like, I'm gonna, like, be stupidly and annoying and aggressive and just, like, match their energy. It's like, you want to be, like, dumb and annoying, I'll be dumb and annoying as well. Like, okay, fine, if that's what you want to do, that's not my problem. You're the one who actively made that decision. I'm just here being a strimmer, advocating for, like, improved material conditions for everybody. But, like, I mean, whatever.
And honestly, I'm cool with that. You think whatever you want to. I am a pseudo-academic with a blue-collar background, and I used to be a blue-collar worker who was going to college on the side for the humanities. I have always been
Amazing.
the weirdo in the room, and at this point, it's the only scenario that I feel comfortable in. But the thing is that I am, technically, a trained socioeconomist, that a lot of people would consider an expert on the labor force. And so I want to start with the impact that economic issues have been having on masculinity in America, because that's something that I am actually qualified to talk about. But
that's also something I've been constantly railing on all the time. Like the productivity gap versus wages, inflation not keeping, or inflation outpacing wages because of like broader deregulation done by like Ronald Reagan and shit like that. It's like there's like so much shit, dude. An ad. I hate ads. I'm skipping the ad.
And off. So,
Thanks, man.
The economy sucks.
True.
That's right. 7 years of college just to tell you that. But really, it fucking sucks to be a young adult in America, man or not, in the current economic landscape. But I think that men
That's
get
true.
hit especially hard by economic turmoil because we're still socialized to be the ones bearing the burden of it, despite being—
Yeah, so just like I mentioned earlier, the reason why a lot of men are having a hard time is because America still goes ahead with like that 50s era propaganda that the man is supposed to be the main breadwinner of the house. It's harder and harder to sort of become the main breadwinner of the house because you need two incomes in order to be able to survive in the current economy. Like, you just have to have two incomes. That's just how it is nowadays. And a lot of men have not been able to cope with that. And so they become, well, incels as a result. I say that like partially ironically and unironically. Like, they tend to go down a lot darker paths. Let's just say.
increasingly—
Also, I mean, Gamergate, social media, broadly speaking, also feeding into a lot of those narratives. That's also a big problem as well. That plays into this significantly in terms of, like, the sort of idea that, like, yeah, whoa, like, maybe we do need to like, return with a V to the 50s, when that's just, like, not how that works. Like, there's a lot of reasons why the time of Keynesian economics was the way that it was. And with the current, like, power structures in place, which a lot of those conservative populists that sell that fucking message do not want to change at all. It's all a lie. It's all a fucking dupe. It makes a lot of people, well, lose their minds. And they become, like, wretched people. And it's just sad. Because they're being manipulated. And it's just bad. We know what the solutions are that are more equitable for everyone else. And that's, well, taxing the rich. To be honest. Taxing the rich. And honestly, full court press and investigation into all these, like, podcasts and dude bros. That is a position that I will gladly advocate for because some of them need to be stopped. I'll be honest, they need to be stopped.
less able to actually do so. Ever since women were forced into the industrialized workforce during the World Wars, and the global population exploded as a result of the baby boom, we have had a surplus, or this glut of workers, that companies value less and less every single year. And while that has led to some fantastic improvements for women's rights and the public perception around what women are allowed to do, not a lot has changed in the public perception of what a man's role is.
Exactly. And this is the sort of, like, criticism that I have for fucking liberals here. The fucking stupid gaslight, girl boss, fucking mentality bullshit. This is not it. Like, yeah, sure, it's cool to have fucking girl bosses and shit like that, yada yada. But this is why men feel like they're being left behind. This is a great point that Urgently Firing is saying here. I really question how these dog shit, I really question how these podcasts are such dog shit yet have massive funding. they just titillate the lizard brain of men somehow, and they get a lot of times they get like fucking backings from like a very very rich people to spread propaganda. I mean, that's with like all the conservative pundits, they're all backed by billionaires. We know this, right? And the market demographic they typically serve are like, well, suburban men, generally speaking.
If you are a straight man in a relationship, and especially if you are a dad, then you are expected to earn the majority of your family's income and generally sacrifice your time and comfort for the sake of others. In the same way that women, statistically, do more of the house chores and spend more time caring for their children, even if both spouses are employed full-time.
Working moms today spend as much time on childcare as stay-at-home moms 40 years ago. That's fucking crazy. Dude, yeah, like, I mean, it's still people parroting old 50s propaganda. It's not like the economy is just, it's just not, it just doesn't work. Which is why you have so many fucking people who are confused. But again, they still have to go forth with all the dumb fuck 50s propaganda, even though that's just not the case anymore. Who knows about, like, those trad wife, like, sort of, like, TikToks and shit like that, right? There's, like, a video that goes into it by like Cody Johnson. I think some more news goes into this, and it is good. It is good, even though it's like a sort of like fetishized like gooner sort of thing at this point. Like, we all know like the stupid memes about like the trad wife ideal that all these like dudes have, but like it's just not like congruent with the current economy. And there's like no like we know what the broader solutions to a lot of these problems are, like better education, better like childcare facilities, being able to help out like emerging families. But these are stuff that's never gonna fucking happen, because again, if you provide like any relief to these people, you don't have that permanent underclass that's always maintained to be desperate. Because that's the point of why like none of this stuff ever gets improved upon. Maintenance of a permanent underclass for the express purpose of maintenance of hierarchy. The point that I will keep harping on over and over and over again, because this is literally what the purpose of this is for. Maintenance of hierarchy, first and foremost.
Time. And while people will disagree with that idea publicly, most people are still internalizing these norms in private. With divorce rates, marital dissatisfaction, and arguments being significantly more common in marriages where the woman makes more money than the man does. And so socially, there is a ton of shame caught up in being a man in America if your wife or girlfriend out-earns you.
Yeah, just like how there's a lot of internalized misogyny that men have, there's a lot of internalized misandry as well, right? Because again, for whatever reason, and liberals do not do a good job of fucking they do not do a good job at sort of like talking about this at all. They don't give a shit about this. Never really engaging with the topic of internalized fucking misandry. Urgently Firing is about the time. Stealing the thunder here a little bit again. The idea that, like, you know, and this is like shit that came from the 50s. It's just not sustainable anymore. It's not. The economy has changed, but the propaganda and sort of like educational systems that talk about this haven't changed either. Same with a lot of the social systems. And I partially also blame like the fucking baby boomers for this, because a lot of them have those ideals as well. Because again, they had that because of significant government intervention and subsidization, making it such that that lifestyle could be maintained. They taught that to a lot of their children in like Gen X or like millennials or whatever. Not the silent generation. That was before boomers. But yeah, and like Gen Xers and shit like that, and like millennials. Because like I don't think millennials really embody this like sort of teaching and it's mostly like I think Gen Xers. And like some like I would say like earlier millennials probably. I think those are broadly speaking like the classifications of people that are there. We broadly understand that, like, hey, kind of crazy, but like the man must be the one who earns more than the wife. And also women get taught this as well by their mothers and their fathers or whatever. It's just not congruent anymore. And boomers, we all know how stuck up and entitled they are because of the stuff that they've been provided. And this is why I fucking hate old people as much as I do, because I rail on them constantly. They can, because of how fucking privileged they are, because of everything that they've been provided for, because of the economic boom that Keynesianism provided for them, the New Deal and then the subsequent ending of World War II, they have sort of like put these mentalities onto people, their children and whatnot. And as a result, because women being more a part of the workforce as a result of men being shipped off to war initially in like World War II and stuff like that, and then them wanting to stay because they want to have their own independence as well. The sort of like model of propaganda and teaching of how you're supposed to be in society hasn't changed at all. So it makes a lot of men, for example, and women completely sort of out of whack. Because it's just like, wait, I'm like expected to be like a housewife staying in the fucking house all day? Well, I don't want that. I want to work and be successful. And like, the man is going to be like, I don't earn as much as my wife, and I'm doing like all the hard work. And like, everyone's judging me around for it. Like, what the heck is happening? Like, what's going on? A lot of the standards of like propaganda have not been maintained. It's still an old model. And so it causes a lot of, infighting amongst families and whatnot. It's just sad.
Masculinity gets belittled, and you are seen as a burden to your friends and family who believe that you should be doing more, which is a pressure that women are just not experiencing to the same degree. And then a lot of allegedly female empowerment content online is then focused on shaming men whenever women have to experience financial or discomfort burdens on a man's behalf. And
so yeah, that's a lot of the stuff that caused Gamergate, I'm gonna keep pointing at that example. Because it's sort of like all of these like internalized pressures kind of like, and the sort of like BuzzFeed dumb fuck feminism sort of like causing an explosion, as a result of all the like just I for lack of a better term, unupdated propaganda. I'm not sure of like what's the best way to sort of describe this. Yeah, that's like the only way I can really think about this. Like old antiquated thinkings that just have not kept up at all with the changing economy because of a lot of deregulatory practices done by a lot of different presidents, and also like weakening of unions, the productivity versus wage gap stuff, stuff that have been mentioned already.
While I know that that is not true feminism in the sense of gender equality, guys still see those videos and they hear those comments from their friends and family, and that puts an intense pressure on us to bear the full burden of financially supporting and enduring discomfort for the women in our lives, while at the same time receiving less gratitude from society, less money from our jobs, and less social and sexual validation than men would have had in the past because they had the finances to support a long-term relationship. Or to put it in more controversial terms, a lot of guys feel as though they have far less male privilege in exchange for having these same historic male burdens. That observation, whether it's true or not, is a driving force behind things like incels, the red pill movement, and men who feel as though they can't actually win in society and just drop out of it altogether. And I think that the rise of non-blue collar men driving big impractical trucks is another massive side effect of that. Yeah, thought we forgot about pickup trucks for a minute there, huh? Much
Not
like
the pickups.
a Dodge Ram sitting in the driveway of a suburban duplex owned by a data analyst, the American man has been divorced of any practical use he may have had as a result of his biological potential. Why am I talking like Norman Osborn? Anyway, for a lot of guys, removing spiders from the bathroom is probably the most manly thing they do on a regular basis. And while plenty of guys will go into the comments and say, I don't need to do manly things in order to be happy, Your biology, your psychology, and quite frankly your penis say otherwise. This isn't some red pill thing or some far-right hot take, it's acknowledging that in broader discourse, male hormones and biology often gets ignored. And
That's
that
true.
testosterone levels in men have absolutely tanked compared.
Dude, I've done like blood tests and saying like, it's like, yeah, everything's like good. You have like low T levels. I'm like, oh, why do I have low T levels? It's like, oh, when was the last time you had sex? I'm like, never had it. I have you know, the bull cell life here. Me outing myself as a turbo virgin yet again. I guess a low T beta here now. Feels bad, man. Never lucky. But I mean, it's because of like, yeah, a lot of like a broader socioeconomic things, you know, like we've been talking about. And yeah, like, as like a lot of the overall points that have been gone over already, like, men are just trying to compensate for, well, mostly other men. Social pressures, shit like that, you know. Nothing that hasn't been gone over at this point.
To people the same age of generations past. Everything from desk jobs to plastics to a poor diet have been doing this to us. And ironically, as the world has become safer and theoretically—
Yeah, dude, the byproducts of like microplastics and like fucking just like, it's just poor regulation, right? Because regulatory capture, big thing, right? A lot of like like factory farms and shit like that have yeah, and pollution as well. Like climate change has a reason in this, has something to play in this as well. But yeah, a lot of regulatory capture by like big factory producers of like foodstuffs, let's just say, like your meat products or your vegetable products. Like the food quality of your food is getting worse and worse because, again, what's the big overall problem here? It's the profit motive, obviously. Like, personally, you know, I'm just gonna throw that out there. Maybe, just maybe, the main thing driving production of food shouldn't be like to make money from making food. It should be for feeding people good, well-made, healthy meals that are, like, you know, easy to make. And, you know, like I've already talked about, like you can find stuff out there, but like the reason why I don't like just saying, oh yeah, you can just find shit out there is because like it's not that simple for a lot of, like, you know, whether it be like people sort of like stuck in the suburbs and all they have is like their big box store. The only way that they have to like drive like 20 minutes in order to just get to like a big box store. Otherwise, there's like no other good like markets for like kilometers or like miles around or whatever. Like there's a lot of factors that are leading to these like sort of like generalized like socioeconomic problems, and like the making of your food is a problem. Like all the stuff that I've mentioned earlier with like the productivity wage gap, like broader regulatory capture. There's so much. There are so many factors, and I would have to take like an hour to like list and sort of explain all of them. Like, it's insane.
Theoretically healthier, we have become sicker as individual people as a result.
Yeah, what's like the meme, right? Like they sell us they sell us their trash or whatever, and so we're forced to buy their medicine or some shit. Like, what's that meme? What's like that pharmaceutical meme? Yeah, sell their cures. Yeah, while they deny us our medicine. Yeah, they feed us poison, so we buy their cures while they suppress our medicine. Even though it's like you know, it's been memed to like hell and high water at this point, but like, you know, you get the sort of point. I don't know like what the original sort of like formulation of this, because it's gone through like God knows how many iterations. I think this is like the main one, right? and it's like it was made by like a bunch of stoners basically. But yeah, like this sort of like idea, right? Like American food is dog shit in comparison. Like up here, not really much better. So you're forced to buy overpriced like pharmaceuticals because American healthcare fucking sucks. In reality, they suppress the fucking medicine, which would not be weed in this particular example, but like regulations on corporations.
Even go to the gym and eat whole foods cooked at home most of the time.
First I saw was
but I'm
cars
still
with
kind of
poison
out of
cured
shape
electric
and
vehicles
lethargic
and
living my
yeah,
day-to-day
exactly.
life. The sitting, the financial stress, the social expectation to eat donuts at work meetings, and the overall environment that we live in is just not conducive to us.
Dude, I've been eating like me getting called out here. I've been eating like fucking shit because again, I can't find a job because the job market fucking sucks. I've been eating worse and worse as a result. It's sad. But yeah, like that meme template, that meme format, Alex, there's like so many different iterations that you can do. Like
Being healthy, virile males. And that's taken a pretty big hit to both our hormones and our overall physical and mental health. And when our hormones are out of whack, then we're not healthy, we're not happy, we're not ambitious, and our libido goes out the window on top of us just not behaving in confident or sexy ways around women in general. And I think too many commentators ignore just how important that social and sexual validation is to young men being healthy people mentally.
Because yeah, I couldn't agree. I could not agree with this anymore. This is listen, hey liberals, instead of doing your stupid girl boss fucking shit, you know, maybe we should think about fucking intersectionality for once. The third wave intersectional feminists were all correct. It'd be like that sometimes.
Then we don't feel confident or valued. And then that combines with the environmental sabotage, creating an entire subclass of men who are sad and isolated. And so I think then that a lot of men try to dig their way out of this hole through superficial expressions of masculinity, like driving a giant truck. See, men do this thing where
or like making a lot of money, or being like a fucking pickup artist, or being an alpha male, right? We've broadly speaking, we've gone over all the iterations of how this sort of takes form, right? Like, you know, I'm probably not going to be pausing as often anymore unless like something new comes up to my mind.
We are hardwired to assess the status cues of other men so that we know where we fall in the hierarchy of a group. There is a lot of nuance to this, but generally speaking, when a man does not feel like he has enough status for whatever reasons, he will try to artificially boost his status by posturing. So like shaking your hand.
That happens all the fucking time. God, these people are so annoying. Is it okay? I want to say, because I'm just going to talk about myself here a little bit. I have never really done... maybe I have done this stuff. I don't fucking know, honestly. Like, maybe I've done, like, the whole, like, posturing bit. But I don't really do this. I always considered myself to be, like, more of, like, a loner, right? Is that, like, cringe in Reddit? Like, a cringe Reddit thing to say? I guess this is like sort of the mentality I've like adopted ever since doing like the unironic like Volcel pledge I did back in like high school or some shit, because that's how I like think of it, like unironically. I'm not sure though.
And way too hard, belittling people, wearing trendy clothes as opposed to having your own style, buying expensive cars, living outside their means, etc, etc, etc. Or even doing what I like to call anti-posturing, where we do the opposite of a traditional flex in order to boost our status by appearing as though we don't care, and therefore appearing confident. Think of like the nerd types who call football sports ball, or the blue-collar guys who refuse to ever wear...
I've done that meme before. Wait a minute. Getting called out. Shit. I don't know. I just do like the meme like ironically, because it's just like I don't really engage with sports. I'll be like, duh, sports ball. I don't really know much about sports. if a topic ever comes up in conversation, I'll like ask about it or whatever. But that's like whatever.
Wear a tie or wear clothes that fit because they don't want to look like they're trying too hard. All of these are very different examples that affect different types of men, but they are all men trying to artificially boost their status in their group by playing on that group's particular insecurities. And trucks are an especially effective way to posture. They are conventionally masculine. America is a car-centric country, so everyone drives a vehicle every single day.
We love driving
vehicles. They provide you the potential to do things that smaller vehicles don't, like hauling, off-roading, and towing. They make you big and imposing on the road, and they're also crazy expensive. So it's a...
Dude, I fucking hate, like, God, pickup truck drivers on the road can be such fucking assholes for, like, no reason. Like, these people, like, seem to have like trouble signaling very often. They'll just like cut you off constantly, just be like really stupid and annoying. I'll just be like, fuck off, man. Like, why are you being such a dickhead? Well, that more or less explains it.
Sign to everyone around you that you have masculine potential and money. Or at least that's how truck drivers probably subconsciously view it. An SUV can often do all of the same stuff that a pickup can do and is often just as expensive, but marketing and social peer pressure pushes a lot of men in particular towards the pickup truck, even when they don't actually need them.
We love marketing
today. It is a universally understood display of extravagance. In the same way that just living in a castle gives you a sway of authority over the public because we are hardwired to figure out what our status in society is.
It's the same shit with weddings, for example, right? Very often a lot of like young couples will go into debt to have like as extravagant of a fucking wedding as possible, as a sort of like show of wealth. Like, look at how wealthy we are, you know, with our like fantabulous fucking wedding or some shit, right? Same idea, same concept, right? And like the wedding industry heavily preys off of that shit all the time. It's fucking wretched.
So that we can behave in ways that are beneficial to the groups that we're in as a whole. A group of peasants could easily raid a castle and kill a king if they were unified to do so. But we see a lot of historic revolutions fail because systems are necessary in order for large groups of people to survive and thrive. That egalitarianism that you hear about in small tribal groups is really only possible because they are small groups of people. A country of 300 million people could not just magically operate if the government disappeared overnight. Way too many systems are being run by people who are incentivized by certain comforts and benefits to do the job that they do. Economics aside, men tend to posture more the more insecure that they are about their status. And in the modern digital age...
Dude, it's like all the fucking dumbasses who come into like the comments section of like YouTube videos when you're like criticizing someone they don't like. They always just get so triggered. It's so annoying. Because it's just like, I know, like, you're broadly speaking, you're really insecure. And I just feel bad for them. Because it's just like, dude. Like, do you need, like, to talk with someone or something? Like, do you need like, a therapy session or something? Are you okay? There's something I can help you with?
Where men don't have conventionally masculine jobs, and we are constantly able to compare ourselves to others through social media, it is virtually impossible for us to have a clear sense of what our status actually is.
Oh, this is a really good point, by the way. Yeah, because social media really, really blurs these lines because of how anonymous it is. This is a very, very good point, right? Because you don't broadly know. Like, fake it till you make it is like quite literally like a sort of economic model that exists now, right? Like, and because of like, you know, like influencers and like bots and shit like that exist because of social media, like this sort of thing has been like heavily exacerbated. And like it can be like both a good thing and like a bad thing, I would say, like, for the time being, it's like a bad thing because like social media can sort of act as like a way to sort of break down current social barriers, and I think it's like I don't know if it how like in terms of like how successful it might be at doing that. That is something that could ultimately be like sort of quibbled about, like talked and like thought about. I'm not sure exactly, but like I mean, like think about it though. Like the sort of like idea that like oh yeah, you know, because of the breaking down of like all these barriers about people being able to interact with one another can be sort of a way of like people helping to learn and grow off of one another, but it can also be sort of a way to sort of like you know reinforce these like sort of hierarchies and like shut in behavior that a lot of people have. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, I would say.
And it is far too easy to feel insecure about our own masculinity because of that. And so one very real reason that trucks are getting bigger and more ridiculous is because the role of men in society has been undermined without the narratives around masculinity changing in a productive way.
Yes.
Sure, there
I
are
can
narratives
agree
out
with
there
that.
telling men that they need to do better and go to therapy, but treating men like we're just dysfunctional women who need to be fixed is honestly quite insulting and not really a productive way to make change at scale. And sure,
Yeah, looking at you, liberals. Liberals, you do that shit all the fucking time. All the like stupid like BuzzFeed feminist like dipshit shit all the fucking time. Uh, it's just not it's just not effective, dude. It's not an effective way means of sort of like bringing about the outcomes that they want. It just doesn't work.
giant trucks are expensive, ridiculous, and sometimes dangerous, but they're probably still one of the less harmful ways that the masculinity crisis has been displaying itself in society. Male enrollment in colleges has tanked. And yes, I know, I teach at a university, so of course I perceive this as an issue. So let me be the first to say that we pushed way too many people into four-year universities in the 2000s and the 20-teens. It wasn't necessary, and it created an oversurplus of overqualified workers who could just not be paid the amount of money that they thought they deserved based off their degree.
I 1000% agree with this, dude. Yeah, because it's like it's the whole idea about like get your degree, get your nice tech job, and there you go. You're gonna be set for life. That was fucking bullshit. That was the lie I was fucking sold. And guess what? I am now reaping and sowing from that shit. I love the tech crashes. Woo! Boy Meets Mini, I think you can sort of also attest to this, bud, right? Like, we're more or less, like, in very, very similar tidings here. I don't know, like, where Boy Meets Mini is gone, but, like, he was here in chat earlier. But, like, yeah, same shit, dude. Literally the exact same, like, problem. Yeah, like the sort of like because like in the early aughts and like 2010s and shit like that, what was like the main propaganda? Like, hey, whoa, crazy, um, you get in, you do your tech job, you go to university, and you get your good position instantaneously. Yeah, that was a load of crap, complete load of shit. And guess what? What was the purpose of like having all these overqualified workers? It was the same point that I've been constantly reiterating at this point. Making a new permanent underclass. You need a lot of like billionaires and CEOs. They needed more high skilled positions, more high skilled tech workers, and so guess what? A lot of that shit got fucking pushed out, and it was something that overall the economy was also clamoring for, broadly speaking. But it had the byproduct of creating a new sort of like a new sort of like permanent underclass of now more high skilled tech workers. In 2012, it took me 8 months to find a job post graduation. I'm trying to remember how long did it take me to find like because I graduated during COVID, so guess what? I had it worse because of COVID. I got lucky enough to find some like random remote like service desk job, but that's not like a what would be perceived as like a good job in society, right? Like more tech administrative work is what's perceived as like good job for like my sort of station. And I've never really had like any good like sort of like administrative work. It's all been like service work pretty much. Because again, like the creation of a new form of permanent underclass was made, one that's more highly educated.
I admit that, but I am a professor second, and I am instead a labor market analyst first and foremost. And I can tell you that we have a labor force disaster on our hands right now, because men are dropping out of schools and the workforce at an alarming rate, and
That's
are
true.
instead just staying home instead of replacing that schooling with something like a trade apprenticeship, the military, or really anything else. According to the Federal Reserve, 14% of 25-year-old males are not employed.
Isn't this also like sort of a thing that a lot of like broader propaganda is also pushing? Like, the trades, it's all about the trades, it's really important about the trades. Like, isn't this essentially like like the same thing that's I'm describing here that's sort of also happening, like of setting like such importance on the trades, right? And I think this might be like sort of a byproduct of just how expensive like schooling is in general, right? Like, who wants to make like a bet that eventually the exact same problem is going to emerge, where now we need like more significant tech workers because the new underclass of like these more like trade workers has been like sort of reestablished. I'm really curious, right? Tuition shot up big time when I went to uni. I'm trying to remember, how much did we overall pay for tuition? How much did I pay for tuition? It was a lot during first year, like about like 20, it was 25 grand for the first year of university, but that's because I also had like, meal plan, staying in residence and shit like that. So there was housing besides like classes themselves. I think tuition in the program that I went to, and this is going to be like an average per year, I think each course was about $500. This is very rough estimates, I think. And I did 5 credits every year. So that's 10 courses. Of course, I changed courses, obviously, so those numbers change. I think it depended on the course, but it was about like $5 grand a year or something. $5 grand a year for 4 years, like $20,000. Nah, it wasn't. Was it that cheap? No, I don't think so. I think it was more than that. I don't really remember exactly 100% certain how much like my tuition was. It was not that low. I don't think so. Like $5 grand a year. There's no fucking way. It was definitely more like maybe like 10 grand a year. It was expensive. I know that for certain. But like maintenance of a new permanent underclass. It's like the point of a lot of this shit is. It's just like, because I see of it as like, sort of like being sold a lie. I don't know if that's like exactly a perfect, accurate way of putting it. Like, I would say like the sort of like need to make a new permanent underclass in a different sector, I think is probably more appropriate. I think that's like the better way of sort of putting it. Because like, a lot of people like, it was okay with the trades before like the crashes or whatever, but now we have need for a lot more like tech work, and now the need for a lot more trades is like come back up. I don't know if is this going to be like a new weird sort of like boom bust cycle that's going to happen. I'm not sure. Like you probably need like more time to like sort of like assess like something like that. I'm not sure.
Employed, which is double the number that we saw decades prior, and is significantly higher than the 4% unemployment rate across the general American population. That means that 1 in every 7 men that you see in their 20s does not have a job, which might surprise you, but absolutely won't surprise any women who have been using dating apps. because surveys suggest that
true.
unemployed men are far more likely to be using these apps. One, because they
Yeah, and they have like nothing better to do, right? So might as well see, like, I don't know, try the dating market instead, because they have time on their hands.
simply
Right.
have more time to be doing something like doom scrolling, and two, because unemployed men are way less likely to be successful in dating, since steady employment is the #1 trait that surveyed women look for in a man that they're considering. And so they have to keep using these apps because they keep going on first dates, but are never able to secure a second date because of their unemployed status. So ladies, if you're
Also, dating is fucking expensive. Like, you know, I've talked about, like, you know, because of suburbanization, you need to have a car. Going to like a nice, like, even like a cheap restaurant is just expensive for people nowadays. It's wages not keeping up with inflation, a ton of shit like that. Like, how often do you pay like $100 or some shit just to go on like a fucking restaurant date, for fuck's sake? That's a lot of fucking money, man. And even for like, you know, like a semi decent, like going to like a bar or some shit and having go to like a little like average like middle class quote unquote restaurant or whatever the fuck. That shit's expensive, man. It's gotten expensive. And it's like it's contributing more and more to these problems. These like, you know, men having a tough time being socialized and shit like that. It's just bad. Like, it's a compounding issue that's just making everything worse and worse. Not to mention, like, the issue with, like, a lot of, like, dating apps. Since, of course, everything in, like, hyper late-stage capitalism has to be commodified. Obviously, dating also has to be commodified as well, right? It just makes, it compounds, like, a sort of, like, a sociological issue worse and worse and worse.
wondering where all the good men have gone, they're at work. Now, before I start offering solutions to all of this, I do think it's important to quickly address the elephant in the room, and that is
Hello,
the political
Republicans.
component to the rise of large pickup trucks. Like I said before, Americans drive vehicles every single day, and so, like it or not, our vehicle becomes an extension of our identity. Yes, there is some utility behind what we drive, like I drive an SUV because I live in the snowy mountains and I have to, but outside of limited utility, the vehicle that we drive is usually a reflection of our aesthetic values. Teslas are a status symbol. Subaru Outbacks are an ideological symbol. Minivans are a symbol that you don't know what a condom is. And pickup trucks are a cultural symbol. They represent rural identity and nostalgia, even for people who don't live out in the country. And for a lot of men, they are a way of pushing back against what they perceive as liberal threats to this country or their way of life. Conservative propaganda is intense in the United States. Our news stations shamelessly lie to us. Republican politicians campaign based off cultural fear as opposed to actual policies. That's also why they keep winning, by the way. And even social media algorithms are hardwired to make us feel positively about the major corporations that control literally everything. And if you've only lived in one—
Yeah, and again, like same constant reiteration of points I've been doing at this point. Like, the purpose of all this, maintenance of hierarchy, right? You know, vehicle as extension of identity, couldn't be me. Yeah, bro who has a mini, boy meets mini, shaking my head. Look at it, everyone point and laugh at the mini driver. Imagine using your vehicle as an extension of your identity, shaking my head. Caught. Yeah, that's right. You thought you could get away with it, mini driver? Not today, not today. But yeah, I mean, like, broadly speaking, like, and this is like stuff like the Republican Party is always going to broadly campaign on. A lot of, well, cultural stuff, generally speaking. So a pickup truck is a perfect sort of vestige in order to adopt politically for the Republican Party. Because again, they're never going to actually provide any like political solutions to the problems because they don't want to, because if they did, they'd lose power. And again, why do conservatives want power at all times for themselves so badly? To help maintain hierarchy. First and foremost, first order principle. Maintenance of hierarchy. Never forget that.
Place your entire life, or you're not particularly educated and traveled, it makes sense why you think that the world is out to get you, because major corporations want you to be fixated on maintaining the status quo,
Exactly.
even if that status quo is less than 100 years old and is actively killing us. But it's not entirely delusion from propaganda either. Our economy sucks, our local communities have broken down, and Americans just generally don't trust each other anymore. We don't feel like we have social safety nets, oftentimes because we don't, and so Americans live their life terrified that they are absolutely screwed if anything bad ever happens to them.
And a lot of this gets played into the stuff I mentioned earlier about suburbia, right? Social isolation that's caused by suburbia, not interacting with your fellow man, not building community anymore because you're stuck in this like palace, you know, or how it's framed as like a palace to not want to like interact with like other people. That's the whole point, right? Makes it easier for maintenance of hierarchy.
So some of us compensate for that anxiety by buying big trucks, big houses, big guns, or just trying to make ourselves look intimidating so that we can reduce our risk of being harmed by other people. And while we all feel that anxiety, who you choose to blame for that anxiety largely depends upon the culture, economics, and politics of where you happen to live. Some people blame major corporations and organized religion for their problems, others blame the ramifications of imperialism, and some people, like our truck-driving brothers, blame misguided liberal policies that have also created issues. I grew up in Nevada, but
a lot of this is downstream from politics, obviously. Right? Like, socioeconomic factors, sort of like where you grew up in the world, blah, 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 blah. Like, I mean, we all have seen, like, the charts about, like, sort of like zip code being correlated with like your station in world. Like that's we all know this, right?
Several generations of my family all grew up in Northern California, and every single person I'm related to who was born in NorCal has had to move to either Las Vegas or Reno in order to get a job and financially survive. Because California has become a disaster of a state to live in for anyone who's either not super wealthy or who is living in poverty and willing to remain on the state's dole, with middle-class families bearing the overwhelming majority of tax burdens in that state. It's not propaganda, it's just the truth. And the same goes for corporations, organized religions, and imperialism too. All of these things have played a part in controlling the lives of individual people and making our overall quality of life worse.
This is such a good point, because this is like a problem that I have with like a lot of lefties. It's mostly, more specifically, Marxist-Leninists. They'll just blame like just one or like two of these aspects when it's like really like multifaceted and complicated. And overall, like it overall helps like capitalists, right? If they only like think about like how it's because of colonialism or imperialism, that's like the main reason why everyone's lives is worse. Well, I mean, yeah, it had a role to play, but it's more complicated than that. It's like, you know, you can talk about how like America is bad. Obviously, America is bad, but you know, it's 10 times more complicated. It's not as simple as just saying like one thing is like this way or that way, which means, you know, it's all of it is like bad or whatever. It's hard. There's a lot of factors. So many things that have to be put into consideration to sort of like come to the conclusion for the sort of economic malaise. Overall, you can talk about it's the sort of like byproducts of just capitalism in general, but you know, there's other things to talk about as well. And you know, that's what I try to do, like, you know, social isolation of from suburbanization, you know, like byproducts of like Jim Crow laws, gentrification, you know, making everything as such that you have to only use a car to get there, like no public transit. I can spend hours here just mentioning all of like the problems that have sort of like culminated, because it's a bunch of different factors and regulations and policies for as to why we are currently in the position that we find ourselves in, socially, economically, so on and so forth.
But it's not cool to be nuanced about that. And so most
Yep.
Americans will pick one or two enemies that they then latch onto as the primary evil that they believe is ruining their life. Remember?
Exactly. Like, and this is like the sort of thing where I talk about like death of like critical thinking and like subjectivity that I've mentioned earlier at this point. Like, there's so much just bad shit going on, and it's just way easier to scapegoat people, so people just do that instead.
Remember when I talked about anti-posturing earlier, where guys will do the opposite of a conventionally masculine thing in order to bolster their status by appearing confident? Well, I think the associated movement against pickup trucks is a fascinating thing to briefly touch on before
True,
I start
Alex.
offering solutions to everything I've just said. And I do promise to offer some solutions, so bear with me. So, back when I was in high school, this really terrible thing happened where young men started wearing fedoras and then incorporating certain chivalry terms like milady into everyday conversation.
I'm honest. I'm gonna be honest. I've never really seen this thing before. Yeah, all the like fucking like Reddit fucking atheism shit like that. Like, this is like supposed to be like the sort of like archetypical like male feminist bit, right? I'm not sure how much I like sort of agree with this. I've never really seen this. I'm gonna be honest.
I'm so sorry if you are about 30 years old and had to relive that trauma, but while we can look back on that now and laugh or cringe about it, you can't deny that this was a result of the early onset of a massive male mental health crisis, and was in many ways a response to the rise of
That was an internet thing, not an IRL thing. There might have been some IRL people with fedoras, but that was like in nerd circles. Yeah, that might have been like more like a LARP thing or like whatever, and that's just like their sort of like style. But they didn't really do like the unironic milady thing. I like this is like again like the more sort of like Reddit tier atheist shit. And again, like the sort of thing that popped out of that was Gamergate, because a lot of those exact same like fedora tippers also became like, all the stupid like psychotic like fucking right wingers, right? Right, like the milady fedora tippers, heckin' epic Carino, Dunkarino on like religion type dudes, right? We all know like the meme image, right? Like that, like the archetypical fedora tipper dude was like the nerd who went on Reddit to sort of like argue religion, and they eventually all became Gamergaters, and it like sort of went full circle back around there. Like, it's crazy.
Social media. Teenage boys saw things like the coming out movement call out homophobia, they saw the Me Too movement call out sexual abuses of men in power, and they saw the tail end of third wave feminism drive straight women into extremes of promiscuity or prudishness. This was a very confusing.
Okay, like, I guess it depends. I'm not sure how much I agree with that point, to be honest. Like, could this be as like because it depends on like the sort of like feminists that are making this sort of like those critiques, right? Is it like more intersectional feminists, or like second wave feminists pretending to be like third way or something? Because it's a difficult line to sort of like delineate, because a lot of those like second wave feminists who pretend to be like third wave, like all those motherfuckers are now TERFs, all of them. But I do agree, broadly speaking, like a lot of the stuff going on with like the sort of like overall inceldom of like men, this like sort of like loneliness epidemic, sociological problem with men, a lot of it is a backlash to Me Too. That I 100% agree with. I'm like, in terms of like the third wave stuff, that I'm not too sure about.
Time to be 15 years old. And unfortunately, a lot of guys were too young or naive to realize that this discourse wasn't really about them. And so that led to a lot of internalized misandry amongst young men in the 20-teens.
Yeah, and this is sort of like the like, I've talked about this earlier in my attack on Gamergate arc. You know, it rears its ugly head again. Like, a lot of this stuff sort of went outside its intended audience, and it started to be picked up by more general audiences. I'm not sure if it was like a general trend of like eternalized misandry. I do agree that it happened to a lot of people. I don't disagree with that. I think that is true, but I think it was more so like, because again, what also happened in the early sort of 2010s, Gamergate, a more reactionary backlash, and we've talked about the overall sort of like results of like why Gamergate ended up really happening, like the you know, the broader attacks on like nerd culture, satanic panic stuff that Dark Matter has like also mentioned, in like, you know, that I mentioned in the Dark Matter video that have all led up into this sort of thing. It's a lot of different factors, right? Like, I'm not sure if like all the sort of fedora tipper like male feminist types, they didn't really become gamergaters, or some of them did eventually become gamergaters, or like more like incel-y, like red pillars, I think eventually. That I can agree with. I guess like with like Gamergate, it's a little different. Like, it's very multifaceted, but I do 1000% agree. Like the coming out movement, and you know, the Me Too stuff, the sort of like people that are going against that has heavily, it's mostly a very reactionary backlash to that.
Guys started to dress in really corny ways to signal that they were enlightened and safe by wearing overly tight or formal clothes.
God, I fucking I fucking hate these fucking jeans, dude. The fucking epidemic of like skinny jeans that happened in like high school and shit, I never fucking went with that. I fell for that shit. I'm like, why the fuck would you ever want to wear like skin tight fucking pants? Like, you're supposed to be comfortable in the clothes that you're wearing. That doesn't look comfortable at all. Oh, well, you know, you get like used to it and stuff like that. It's like, do you? Like, what? That's so weird to me.
They tried to bring back a cherry-picked form of chivalry that, again, could signal that they were safe and enlightened. And they based their entire personality around being nice, with the hopes that that would convince straight women to want to date them in the midst of all the discourse going on online.
Yeah, it's like all this fucking like Elliot Rogers shit, you know, where he talked about, I was like a nice guy to you or whatever. And then, you know, he did a shooting. He did a school shooting.
To basically say, hey, I'm not a product of toxic masculinity, I'm a nice guy. And, yeah, it didn't work. But in spite of that approach not working,
liberals,
the nice guy persona continued to evolve in unproductive and misguided ways. You saw the rise of incel culture, where guys who were unsuccessful at dating started to believe that there was a mass conspiracy against nice guys like them, and that they were involuntarily celibate as a result. That internalized misandry then created mythical enemies online, known as the Chad or the Alpha, who, while conventionally attractive to women, was ultimately perceived as not good for them because he was a product in their eyes of toxic masculinity, or just didn't have the same level of emotion.
Also, like, isn't this, you know, archetypical Giga Chad guy, right? Like, you know, isn't he like one of like kind of like, he's like a very, very nice person in like real life, you know? He's like an average sort of dude. He just has like a fucking crazy body that he maintains, right? Yeah, I'm covering the head of Giga. Here he is. Y'all know him, y'all love him, Giga Chad. Like we you know. Yeah, it's me. I am the Giga Chad now. Beep 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 beep. It's actually me who is Giga Chad. Oh well. Wait, what was I saying? What was the point I was bringing up? Yeah, like, you know, BuzzFeed feminism rearing its ugly head yet again. I'll be honest, like, byproducts of like liberals trying to do like some form of intersectional feminism and just like failing miserably at it. I'll be honest.
emotional maturity or feminism that they did. And so in more recent years, that nice guy persona has started to adopt an alternate form of masculinity that they have dubbed the Sigma male. Fortunately, most Sigma male content online is just clowning on guys who think this way. It's ironic, it's not serious, but there are guys who think this way.
And I mean, yeah, that used to be what, like, I mean, this is more like a thing, like, I would say, like, 2 years ago at this point. When was Andrew Tate popular? Like, the last year, 2 years ago kind of a deal, right? Like, but yeah, like, no one treats, like, the Sigma male shit, like, people are ironic about it, right? Like, at this point. Like, yeah, bro, I'm not an alpha or a beta, I'm a Sigma. Whoa, you know. It's just like I don't know, like it's really hard for me to not just be like, men are very mentally ill and they just need some help. They need some help.
And they base their whole personality around anti-posturing and or shaming the masculinity of other men to make themselves feel better. They're the type of guy who sees those K-truck memes and thinks, yes, I need a tiny vehicle so that I'm not associated with those brutes in the giant pickup trucks. Or the type of guy at a party who like reads poetry and then sits there and goes, I only ever let women finish first. And you have to sit there and
yeah, it's like the sort of we're talking about like the male feminist archetype or whatever at this point, right? Yeah.
Go, yas, king, because it's not socially acceptable to antagonize him, even though the good things that he's saying are technically coming from a place of toxic manipulation against women. It's a catch-22, and while I don't know how to address that, I do have some suggestions for young men out there who aren't sure how to navigate their personal masculinity in this new world order that we found ourselves in. First,
I could probably, like, what is, like, the sort of solution for, like, the male feminist sort of archetype? Go to therapy. I'm saying that as, like, a purely rhetorical mean. I don't know, like, I'm not sure, right? Because, like, I don't know. I've never really met, like, those sort of, like, people who unironically do that. Because it's just kind of, like, it's just kind of weird, dude. Like, just be like a human, be like normal. I don't know. No, I'm not sure.
First and foremost, you need to have enough self-awareness so that you can comfortably be yourself around women. Women can smell inauthenticity from a mile away and fake.
I feel like we're gonna swing between toxic male feminist masculinity and toxic alpha masculinity forever. Yeah, probably. Like, I don't even know. Like, at this point, because Trump won, it's now cool to be, like, a fucking male feminist again or some shit. It's cool to have, like, the woke haircuts with your shit or whatever. I don't know. Like, I guess a lot of this is, like, the sort of, like, byproducts of, like, making, like, politics trendy, right? I think so, right? I think that's, like, pretty safe to say. The byproducts of like celebrity and being introduced within politics instead of like making it like I think it's a good thing broadly speaking that like because like it used to be I hardly would like talk politics at all with like any of my fucking friends, but they know now that like I'm like a more politics head, and I'm talking about like, you know, IRL friends and shit like that, and now like everyone has sort of come to the realization that politics is very dumb but very important. You know, funny horseman fucking saying the same thing every single time, but he's correct when he says that. And broadly speaking, a lot of people have like sort of come to these like realizations. And you know, I don't know if it's like accurate to say that a lot of people walk on eggshells around me, because like I know how to smell the rhetoric. I know I've been in these circles for long enough. I don't want to like make it look like I'm sort of like giving off that aura. I don't know. I just like arguing and like yelling with people. I'm not sure. One of my childhood friends took a hard left turn in 2016 when Trump was elected. Hopefully they're not a cringe Marxist-Leninist. That's all I have to say. Are they, Alex, are they a cringe Marxist-Leninist? Because hard left turn can mean one of two things. Either they'll be like a weird, like an anarchity, which is not as bad as like the MLs, or they're like hardcore, like fucking Stalinists, and those guys are just bad. I'll be honest. But like, you know, yeah, I'm not sure. Like the sort of like attitudes that I'd like give off or something. Very left social democrat. Okay, so they're based. All right, that's good.
Reeks. Even if you are a good liar or a good actor, not being true to yourself is eventually going to catch up to you. You're going to slip, and then you're going to betray the trust of people who fell in love with a fake version of you. So just be yourself, as corny as that sounds.
So like, yeah, so probably not like 100%, like I'd say, like, you know, means of production needs to be gotten rid of type thing. Not a full-on Marxist or some shit. But yeah, okay.
That's going to attract friends and partners to you who fall in love with the version of you that's the easiest for you to maintain.
I overall, like, okay, here's the thing with like this advice that Urgently Firing is giving. I agree with that. Like, I don't know, like, cause the problem is like if you tell an incel or whatever, like, be yourself or whatever, that's not gonna work. I guess this is like more a sort of thing to sort of like talk about to like like the male feminist types, right? Like, you know, just be like your average like normal self or whatever the fuck. Maybe more effective, but I don't even know like if it's effective on them. I'm not sure though. Right? Like, just be yourself, forehead. I don't know. I don't know how much of an effective strategy that might be.
Because it's the most authentic version of you. But with that, also understand that being authentically yourself can include being authentically nuanced and authentically considerate of others. Okay, you're allowed to be both things. Like, I like to say the fuck word. I have a potty mouth, I know, but I'm probably not gonna swear like at a religious old woman, because I'm also an authentically considerate person, as well as someone who authentically uses swear words a lot. Okay, both things are allowed to be true. The truer you are to yourself, the fewer misconceptions that people will have about you, and the more people that you will slowly attract into your life who have similar values and interests as you. Speaking of values and beliefs, I would highly caution you against adopting any isms into your life whenever you can help it. Unless you are part of a specific religion, self-identifying with a political ideal, with an economic system, or with a philosophy is just kinda cringe. You can be a Buddhist, like that's fine, but being a capitalist or a conservative or an existentialist is just weird and cringy, and it really makes you come across like you don't have a nuanced or deep understanding of culture and history.
That's 1000% accurate. Like, the people who like, you know, you see in their fucking bios, they do like the whole like, the whole lefty spiel of like Marxist, Leninist, imperialist, or like those like weirdo or those like weirdo like conservatives who do like the patriotism conservative blah, blah. Those people are the most fucking cringe ass fucking losers. I fucking hate them, dude. God, they're so cringe and inauthentic. And yeah, like, I mean, if you're talking with like average sort of normal people, like like, don't ever do that. Like, yeah, never do like the ism fucking thing, because it's just like, unless it comes up in conversation, then yeah, obviously you could talk about that shit. I try never to do that unless it comes up in conversation. I'll be like, yeah, this is what I broadly believe in different stuff, yada yada yada. Why can Buddhists have Buddhism? Many people are asking these questions.
So, in the words of Ferris Bueller, don't be an ism, be yourself. And on that note, it's important that you are putting self-awareness before self-improvement. Toxic productivity is very much a thing, and sometimes doing healthy things can end up being unhealthy in the wrong context. Maintaining a diet can become unhealthy if you develop a disorder. Waking up at 5 a.m. to work out when you went to bed at 1 in the morning is unhealthy. You need
okay, here's the question, because who knows, like, the trend of, like, the morning routine, dude? You know, everyone knows what I'm talking about. The morning routine guy. You know, that super jacked fucking black dude who did the fucking stupid TikTok trend. I know I'm not the only one. When does that guy go to sleep? Because I don't know if I've seen like the full video. Like those are they're so stupid. No one lives like that. Dude just does the fucking routine and it's just ad infinitum. It's just like, bro, you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And like, dude has like the precise times. Like, does that account like you positioning the fucking camera as well? Like, to get the fucking shots that you're looking for? That takes a lot of fucking time. There's no way you constantly doing the same thing. There's no way. Dunks his face in super expensive sparkling water. I don't even know what is that even supposed to accomplish? It's just weird. I'll be honest. Which is why people made like parodies of it and just made fun of it, right? Because it's just like this is dog. This is like some weird shit, dude. Yeah, exactly. Like it takes time to set up the shot. It's like, well, then now the time is not going to be the same, right? That's weird.
Need to understand why you're doing the things that you do and if you have an end goal in mind. That way you can reverse engineer that end goal to where you are right now as opposed to where you think you should be in life as a person, because that's going to help you take effective next steps towards your goal. And also be okay with exploring things. Like, it is great to try new things and to broaden your perspective. But anytime that you explore something new, you want to approach it with a bit of caution and skepticism, because there are a lot of charlatans online who are actively lying to people about things like finance, health, and spirituality. And
oh god, yeah, all the fucking male podcast alpha male bros, like, we all know the trends of the fresh and fits and all these motherfuckers who are full of shit. What, the Nelk boys, the Tates, all these fucking morons. Like, they're all just complete full of shit, full of garbage, right? And the only, like it was mentioned earlier, the only reason why they do this is because they're in the social strata where it's not about impressing women to them. They don't give a shit about that. It's about impressing other men. That's the point, right?
If you fall into those traps before you've learned enough about what a space is actually like, you're gonna get scammed at worst, or at best, you're gonna become one of those people who's changing their religion or their diet every other week. And no one wants to be around those people. It's the same reason why you don't marry someone whom you've just met. Even if she's super pretty and likes all the same video games as you need to meet her family, you need to travel.
I'm trying to think, is there really, like, is it like the unironic, like, you know, what's the political compass meme? You know, the I'm 16 and I'm political, right? Right? I'm 16 and I want to be political, right? You know? Yeah, like this. we know what we're talking about here. We know the meme. I don't want to play the video because I'm pretty sure it's probably got copyright music. Yeah, at first, you know, you get your anti-feminist compilation. Today I'm 16, I want to become political. Dude's Nazi now because after listening to Richard Spencer. Now communist now because of supports trans people now because of ContraPoint's video. Learns about the USSR. Is now a communist. Becomes an anarchist after reading an anarchist thread. Becomes America First now or some shit after reading like Ted Kaczynski and shit like that. The reference to the fucking Cat Boy is so funny. It becomes like an Anprim after reading Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber Manifesto. And like just goes through it. It's so dumb. I don't know if there's anyone who's unironically like this, but you know, that's like the sort of meme, right?
Together. You need to experience stress together. You, quite frankly, probably need to move in together for a while first. That way you have enough time and exposure to figure out if any inevitable red flags that will show up are or aren't deal breakers for you and are instead something that you can work through or compromise on. So get really self-aware about what your personal needs and wants are. That way you can explore new things that you might be interested in without getting scammed or falling prey to propaganda. And then when it comes to the people out
there
everyone,
you're not immune to propaganda.
The struggling young men in their life or in society at large, you need to have a nuanced approach to male mental health that goes beyond simple talk therapy or emotional maturity. Men are not dysfunctional women. We have different hormones, we are socialized differently, we are perceived differently by other people, and we are often conditioned to prioritize different things. While this isn't universally true, the average man will probably see more improvements to his mental health by exercising than he will by emotionally opening up to his friends. Getting a better job and or making more money will probably improve his mental health faster than learning to accept himself the way that he is. Most men want to be valued by others and perceived as useful, that way he can get some forms of social, sexual, or financial validation from his efforts. And so if you can push the men in your life in those directions, that's going to end up being very useful. And while I'm not opposed to education or therapy at all, I do think it's important to understand and appreciate that most teachers and therapists are women, and that a lot of men just won't relate very well to—
or like not only that, or like nursing, for example, as well. And like that's like a lot of byproducts of, you know, like here comes like the stupid standard take, whoa, crazy, the patriarchy, right? You know, like a lot of men have been like sociologically sort of conditioned, broadly speaking, to believe like some jobs are like what a woman is meant to do, the more like social sciences job, and the more rugged, hard, tough work that's what men are supposed to do, when obviously that's like not really the case. Anyone can do any of these positions, right? Depending on like here, there, and you know, the everywhere or whatever. And it's a lot of it is like the byproducts of propaganda. The question is like, are these like, you know, a lot of these is like how much of it is like sort of like the sort of byproducts of like propaganda, how much of it is like necessarily because of, you know, the sort of like socialization they've gone through. It's quite like difficult to say. It's a very case by case basis. You can make like sort of generalizations, but a lot of this like sort of mentality and ideas that certain people go into certain jobs because of a particular like gender or sexual orientation. A lot of that is propaganda. Some of it is like based in like reality, but it's because like a lot of people think, because of propaganda from like whatever like patriarchy and bullshit like that, that they are conditioned to think like, well, you know, this is like the only thing I can do because I'm of this particular presentation, sexual orientation, or whatever, right? True that having a stable job is better for mental health than a therapist, but a lot of these conservative morons have this ability, and they are so propagandized that they throw it away. You're pretty much on the money there, Alex. But like, I mean, a lot of that is also because of a lot of other like sort of extenuating circumstances, like with the stuff that I mentioned earlier, because of, well, suburbanization essentially like destroying the sense of community that a lot of people have to like, you know, that like suburbanization destroying the sort of like sense of community that a lot of people used to have in like tenement housing. Like that's also like a factor, you know. All of like the like talk radio hosts and like your daily commute. I think like daily commutes are also like a big problem, but that's like byproducts of like suburbanization, right? Like America is like is a very, very sort of like atomized, individualized society, right? Like
to school like or therapy as a result of that. It's kind of like picking an OBGYN. Yes, there are plenty of male OBGYNs out there who are very good at their jobs and not creepy, and there are plenty of women out there who prefer a male OBGYN because that gender distance just gives them a sense of security.
I don't remember. What the fuck is OBGYN? I feel like I should know this, but I'm very stupid. Fuck is an OBGYN? Of obstetrics and gynecology? A gynecologist? Oh, gynecology. Okay.
However, most women would probably feel uncomfortable around a male OBGYN, in the same way that a lot of young men probably feel uncomfortable opening up around a female teacher or a female therapist. For better or worse, we're just kind of hardwired to intrinsically trust people who look like us. Whether it's true or not, we often just assume that somebody who looks like us had similar experiences, was socialized in a similar way, and can therefore empathize with us more effectively than somebody else could. Incidentally, this is also why diversity in the workplace is actually important, especially in like education or psychology, because it means that you can better serve your clients. But
yeah, exactly.
I've personally used,
because like, you know, like if you only have like one type of person that you're serving, like you're gonna have a problem when you go into the actual workplace and you get like, I don't know, a black person. If you're like, fuck, I only know how to deal with the problems of white people, not the problems of black people. Fuck. Shit. You're gonna be a pretty bad fucking therapist, right? Like, everyone needs a fucking therapist. Yeah, everyone needs a person to fucking talk to or some shit, you know?
Therapy twice in my life, and I have had two radically different experiences with it. So back when I was a flight medic, I had access to therapy through the VA hospital. I was not a veteran, but by the nature of my job, I was dealing with some pretty intense stuff that veterans could oftentimes more easily relate to. And I had a great time. Sure. It was fantastic. Now, however, I am working at a university, and so last year I enrolled in some clinical trials that they were doing where they had professors meet with therapists in order to see the impact that that would have on their mental health. And every single therapist that I met with was a 22-year-old, financially privileged, straight white woman. And we just could not relate to one another. My background, my personality, and my experiences were so different than what they were used to that we just could not make headway, especially considering that they were only PhD students and had...
Yeah, it makes it fucking difficult, man. That's why it's like a fucking... I feel like that might be a byproduct of it just being a clinical trial for, like, them trying to, like, see if those women can, like, hack it at being a fucking therapist or some shit. Or maybe it's just, like, for their own educational attainment, right? Yeah, it's, like, I think the only time I saw a therapist was, like, I think it was, like, some older dude, and I was talking about my struggles of, like, trying to find, like, work or whatever, and the dude just said, like, is there, like, something wrong with me? And all he says, like, no, you're, like, an average kind of dude, like, everyone's having, like, the same problems. And I just, like... that made me just, like, really mad, and I never wanted to see, like, another therapist, because it's like, well, I'm clearly, like, struggling with something. Like, well, what's going on? What's happening? It's like, no, like, this is just kind of average and normal for, like, students in your position. And I just got, like, really fucking pissed with that, because I'm just like, it's like, well, clearly it's not, like, the case. You're just, like, you're, like, obfuscating or something. Like, well, like, what am I supposed to do or say? Like, what the heck? And it was, like, a much older white dude. Like, so I'm just like, okay, whatever, bro.
Hadn't met very clients before to begin with. And I ended up dropping it because having to go to that talk therapy every Tuesday and Thursday was causing me more mental distress than was actually being alleviated by going. Also, massive disclaimer, I don't suffer from any serious or chronic mental health issues, so it was not a danger to myself or anybody else for me to stop going to that therapy. If a man has a proper disorder, get him in to see a professional, and a lot of times get him medicated, okay? It's important. But that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Male mental health is nuanced and complex, and so it's important that you're not pushing the men in your life to be ensnared in a bunch of medical debt or to go to something that's actually causing them more dread than it's curing. If he doesn't have a real clinical disorder, then ask yourself, is he lonely? Does he feel valued by his family, friends, or at work? Does he get proper food and exercise to keep his hormones?
I feel like I'm being called out right now. Shit. Fuck. No. Fuck. Why am I being... we're breaking the fourth wall here, okay? I'm being asked these questions. Fuck. Caught. And so far, yeah... What, am I lonely? Yes. Probably. I don't know. Yeah, I'll say yes. What's the other questions?
Actually causing them more dread than it's
Shit.
curing. If he doesn't
therapy
have a
session
real
now.
clinical disorder, then ask yourself, is he lonely?
Yes.
Does he feel valued by his family, friends, or at work?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I hate talking with my family. I try to actively avoid it as much as I possibly can. So it's so bad to the point where I literally told my parents, I'm like, I do not like talking with you guys. It is a chore to talk with you guys. I don't like you. Go like shoo away. And they keep like trying their best to like to push me in the right direction, and I'm just like, it's like what you're doing, it's just not working. It doesn't work. I don't like it. I hate it. Stop it. Just like leave me be. It's like, but you can't like, you're only doing this because we're like providing everything for you. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, damn. Whoa. I understand. I'm very privileged. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that yet again. But no, it's like you're just not helping. It's like you should like go see a therapist. Like, I don't want to see a therapist. Maybe that's me also having my own like sort of. But I also talked about my experience that I had with therapists. It was not great. I didn't like it that much.
Does he get proper food and exercise to keep his hormones in check?
I think so. I don't know, honestly. I sit here very often, I'll be honest. But I do exercise. I go up and down the stairs every day. I eat food from home that I get from home. That's, about as healthy as you can get. So I don't know. I have home cooked meals.
Does he have expectations on himself at school that he just can't meet? And are any of those things the reasons why he is sad and isolating? Because once those insecurities start to go away, the more toxic sides of his masculine expression will diminish too, and then confidence and healthy behaviors will follow. And then he won't feel the need to posture anymore. I'll see you in the next video.
I'm being called out in this video. Not like this. Feels bad, man. Well, anywho, still overall, very, very good video there. Despite the, like, self-insert therapy session I did on myself. I mean, in conclusion, man, I think that this went on a lot longer than I thought it would. But whatever. A lot of really great sort of topics were hit. Yeah, it went places, obviously, like, and I, like, that's why overall, like, when I saw the video, I'm like, yeah, this is great. It's fantastic that it went a lot of different places, because there's a lot of different factors, and I overall very much so agree with that. A period, end of story. Man, like, where to even begin with? A lot of these sort of, like, broader problems with suburbanization, the social isolation, this is a broad problem in general with, like, the sort of attitudes, broadly speaking, in, like, America. Period, like, end of story, right? Like, byproduct of the fucking 50s, man. It really, really is. Like, I really do believe that this is, like, sort of the byproduct of the 1950s. The sort of, like, idea that, like, white picket fence with 1.5 kids, dog, and your nice your nice housewife will do all the chores, and that you're the sort of, like, main breadwinner. That's obviously been destroyed, and this is a concept that I've talked about before. Like, we know, broadly speaking, why this has, like, happened. A lot of economic deregulation of the markets, a lot of sort of further, like, the outsourcing of jobs. There's a lot of complicated factors. Suburbanization, hardly any public transit, people being atomized and socially isolated. That's why. Maybe it's not 100%, like, there's other factors as well, but those I think are, like, probably some of the biggest factors. And it's tough, man. It's just difficult. And I understand, like, a lot of people who are suffering. I'm fucking suffering from this as well. Like, I've been sold the sort of, like, 2010s lie of, like, if you get into a good tech sector job, you're going to be set. No. I try not to do like the self-insert shit as much as I can, but you know, it's kind of difficult not to, especially with something like this. But you know, the cultural sort of like signifiers and like performativity that unfortunately is plaguing a lot of people nowadays. It's I think outlined pretty perfectly well in this video here done by Urgently Firing. So overall, like, yeah, it was a good video. Very highly would recommend, you know, watching it again, or if you want to, or whatever. See what you can glean. These are my just general sort of overall thoughts. I thought it was very, very good. It covered a lot of very good topics and stuff. Bam, that's all I really got to say about that.